I ate that bowl of oatmeal, and when I got done, I was like this. And I started noticing, I started looking just like she did. Okay, think about this. I mean, 98 degrees outside, bowl of oatmeal for breakfast. How about a little diluted citrus juice, right? See what I'm getting at? And then I realized that I needed to go right back to bed. Once in a while on a Sunday, we have a game we play, which is we make whole wheat pancakes or a heavy breakfast. Oh, it's fun sometimes just to lie in bed all day and have a heavy breakfast. You don't have any choice. You eat a breakfast like that in a warm climate, you can't move the rest of the day. So I think the biggest part of her disease was her food program. And once I got her bowel cleaned out, she was very constipated. And once I got her food program corrected, she had no more rare New Zealand disease. So I now know the cure, in case anybody gets that disease from New Zealand that only 3 people in the world have, how to fix that. So the importance of getting that bowel working and, of course, stopping the food that clogs up the bowel. What are some of the most congestive foods to the bowel? I think if I had to pick the number one, I would pick dairy products. We all know what white glue is, Elmer's glue. Who makes it? Borden's. It's just milk protein, casein, byproduct of the milk industry. And it works good. And so, you know, this is just a basic example of why dairy products are so congestive in our bowel. Let's talk a little bit about dairy products for a second here, just to give you some of my own personal views. I've seen a lot of strange things in nature, but I've never seen a monkey suckling off a giraffe. I've never seen any animal ever using the milk of another species of animal on this planet. You know, it just doesn't happen. We're the only animal that does that. When you look at cow's milk and analyze it, you see that it has the RNA, the DNA, the fats, the hormones, the genetic chemical pattern to create a cow. That's what it's for. That's what milk is for. And that's why when you see milk-fed babies, they're usually overweight, mucus running out their nose, and very fat and sickly. Well, you know, I believe that we are creating a race of genetically distorted people that are half human, half cow. I really do. I don't think we know what humans even look like anymore because we've had this material in our body that really is designed to build a cow. It's a genetic structure, a genetic chemical structure to make another animal, not a human. So I think that's probably the first thing that's very distorted about that. Now, people do all sorts of crazy things. And people say to me, well, people have been using milk for thousands of years. Well, people have been killing themselves for thousands of years. Does that mean that it's right? Just because a lot of people do it, or it's socially acceptable? In southern Russia and Kazakhstan, they drink fermented horse milk. That seems very disgusting to us, but to them, drinking cow's milk seems disgusting. See what I mean? It's just something that's become socially acceptable. It doesn't mean that it's natural or it's right. Cow's milk, you know, we're all lactose intolerant. People say, well, I think I'm, forget it, I think I'm, or 10% of the, everybody in here is lactose intolerant. That is not a food that was designed for the human body. When we take it in our body, our immune system goes nuts, okay, and causes immune reaction. That isn't lactose intolerance. It's our immune system going crazy trying to heal us from poisoning ourselves. Really, that's what's happening with dairy products. Our body is not designed to recognize that material as food. Our immune system has one basic job. My immune system's job is to kill anything that isn't cayenne or isn't food for cayenne. To kill it. With an immunoglobulin on a surface B cell to make a poison, with a killer T cell, with a macrophage big eater to go out there and do it. My immunity's job is to do that, and that's what it's trying to do the minute I take dairy in my body. It's trying to kill it. It's a poison, it's a toxin to the human system. Sure, we can live on it. Human beings can live on anything. I think we could eat dirt in here and survive. This is the most incredible being that exists on this planet. We're lucky in here, okay? We have been given the gift of the most incredible being ever known, ever seen, ever to exist, as far as we know. Okay? We can eat anything. We can smoke cigarettes, drink beer, and eat sausage, and we will live, right? This body can figure out a way to function on all that stuff. But our key is how to take away that irritation so we can develop greater levels of health. And eggs, has anybody ever been to Venice, Italy? 800 years old, the town, built on water. And the walls of the building are so hard that you can take a hammer and hit them and they don't even chip. And they had no concrete. Venice, Italy was built with dirt and eggs mixed together, and the walls were made out of the buildings with dirt and eggs. And this will show you the hardening ability of cholesterol, because it's a chicken farming area. And 900 years ago, that's what they built with. And it's incredible. And if any of you have ever had an egg thrown on your mailbox or car on Halloween, you know that you need nuclear weaponry to get it off. Okay, again, cholesterol is incredibly hardening. And of course, that's what it does in our digestive tract, and in our body, and in our coronary arteries. So we want to get that out of our life if we want our bowel to work properly. Some people pick a lot on wheat and wheat gluten. Certainly, there are foods that are more congestive than others. I like wheat, and I think wheat is good food. But I watch how much wheat I eat, you know, and I choose the right kind of wheat. Wonder Bread's wheat, okay, but it's the wrong kind of wheat. Dr. Jensen has material proving that when you eat large amounts of refined wheat, that it actually tears the villi off your small intestine, that the gluten adheres to it and detaches the villi. Now, what's the villi for? Absorption. So if we don't have villi, we're not going to look very good, right? We're not going to feel very good. We're going to die. So watch the gluey substances that you do eat. I like organic whole wheat non-yeast chapatis that are about this thin. Okay, if you're going to eat something that's cooked wheat product, that's fine. Something like that. Just watch your amount. But basically, we're talking about staying away from the dairy and eggs, the real gluey foods for the bowel. Now, when we want to get this bowel working again, Anisha, would you get me out in the box? There's Naturalax and there's intestinal corrective formula. There's a couple bottles of each. Yes, please. I think that let's all start taking, most of us in here, or some of us will be already taking Naturalax or intestinal corrective formula, but let's increase our dosage. Let's really get our bowels working. How many have noticed coming here their bowels haven't worked as well? Okay. I notice that all the time when I travel. I'm not afraid to fly. I'm flying all the time. My frequent flyer card has so many miles on it, I got a free trip to Mars if I want to go.
How do you deal with travel?
Oh, it's not good for you. It's the price I pay to educate. You know, my work, part of my work is to work with patients in my clinic in California, but part of my real work is to teach people, anybody that'll listen to me all over the world. That's what I call my karmic yoga, or my good deed, or my gift, that I have to have this gift to feel good about myself. And part of the way I get around is flying in airlines, and it's horrible. I mean, the radiation exposure is tremendous when you're up in the higher atmosphere. People that fly consistently have a much higher rate of cancer. You're sitting next to engines. If you can imagine sitting next to a jet turbine, what is that magnetic effect having on my body? The air is dried, you dehydrate. You know, flying at 40,000 feet at 600 miles an hour is not natural. And your body suffers, and mine always shuts down my digestive tract. So I get constipated when I travel. If I have fear, well, there's 20 people here I don't know, are they going to like me? You know, you run fears through your mind, that constipates you. And just having a different routine. Some people come here and they think, oh, there's something wrong with the food, I'm not going to the bathroom. There's nothing wrong with the food here, okay? It's just different. And your bowel works great off routines. And the minute you go like that, you have a different reaction, your bowel stops. So it's important, if that happens to you, to get your bowel working immediately. I, in fact, get my bowel working before it happens because I know what's going to happen. So I suggest that everybody take intestinal corrective formulas while they're here, no matter how many bowel movements you're having, just to experience what these herbs do in your bowel. And the two formulas I have here are the two formulas that I use exclusively in my clinic, which is Dr. Christopher's Fennel B, or as it's seen, Naturalax number 2 sometimes, and my intestinal corrective formula number 1, sometimes referred to as TNT. And I actually have another one that I use at home for very special patients I call depth charges. But we don't sell that on the retail market. So what I'd like to do is make sure we pass these around and that everybody takes some, and take them while you're here. Because we're going to do some different things while you're here too. We're going to taste some different herbs, eat some food that you may not be used to. I don't know about you people, but I usually don't eat a pound of puffball for my evening meal. Okay, so we're going to be doing some different things. So it's important that we keep our bowels functional and working. We might get nervous. We're going to get nervous about the test a little bit sometimes. Do I know the Latin names? And all those things slow down our bowel function. Yes. This is this is raw peppermint oil from organic peppermint. Very strong. And that was 2 drops for most of us. And you can see that a good herbal extract should be a very concentrated form of the herb itself. I've brought some of the competition's extracts here. We're going to check out and try and taste and see how bad they are. I'm just recovering from this myself here. But a good herbal extract should be a very, very concentrated form of the herb. And so, if you know, many times over the years in health food stores, I've gone in and something says, you know, peppermint extract, and I taste it, and it barely tastes like mint. I mean, if it's a good quality extract, an extract means we're extracting from the herb the medicinal properties or the chemicals or all the various chemicals that Christopher talked about, the essential oils. If we're doing that, it should be incredibly powerful. It should be an herbal medicine. Dr. Christopher always said that 1 or 2 drops of a good tincture put into a cup with boiling water poured over it should equal the same medicinal value as an entire cup of that herbal tea. And how many tinctures do you see on the market today that will do that? I don't see too many, except the ones that we manufacture. So I know there's a lot of companies out there that it'll say herbal tincture, and I taste many different ones from the same company, and they taste like burnt ashes or something. Doesn't resemble the herb at all. So if you make yourself peppermint, this is peppermint oil now. So now we're dealing with an essential oil, which is very powerful. And this is why, what did Christopher say about essential oils? And so what if we're going to use them internally? Yeah, should be diluted and or use very, very small quantities of them. Like we just had 2 drops, which is certainly a full adult dose of raw organic peppermint oil. And we can taste that. It's very powerful. So when we use essential oils internally, very small amounts. And the same with tinctures. Peppermint, what's peppermint good for? Yeah, so it's a nice herb to have after a meal. Aids our digestion, all aspects of our digestion, from our upper digestion to helping us excrete more digestive fluids, to relaxing our stomach a little bit, all the way to the other end. What did Christopher say it did at the other end of our digestion? Carminative, and what did it do down here? He mentioned about something getting dilated somewhere. Dilating the sphincter between the very end of the colon and the rectum. Remember that? So it helps you release gas. so you can have a buildup of gas.
Oh, wow. Open the windows.
Maybe it was I was supposed to give this one at the end of class, not at the beginning of class. Well, it takes a while for it to do that. Well, hopefully that'll be at 4 hours or longer from now. So a nice way, you know, I have about 150 different herbs in this bag. And one of the ways that I can carry my medical bag around is by having concentrates, extracts, tinctures, things like that. If I were to carry, you know, poundage of herbs, it would be impossible, or I'd need a big steamer trunk. So extracts is one of the ways that I choose to carry my first aid and my medical bag around with me. So that's just a peppermint. Do we still taste peppermint in our mouth? We may, yeah, we may have to wait a minute. Okay. When we stopped for lunch, any questions about anything I covered this morning before we move on here with our elimination? Okay. We were just about to go into the various cathartic herbs now that we can use to clean our bowel, because we've already decided that almost half of American adults have bowel problems, at least clinically diagnosed bowel herniation. Well, there's a lot of things that come before your bowel finally herniates. Medicine tends to deal only with your body once it's become dysfunctional. But if half American adults already have a herniated colon, I would suggest that the other half are on their way there. So we need to look at the herbs that we can use to get the bowel cleaned out. And of course, most of them are what comprise Dr. Christopher's Naturalax or Phenol-B formula and my intestinal corrective. And if we look in our handouts, the large intestine colon handout here, I list a number of things for the large intestine colon: an herbal category, a food juice category, and a natural routine category. The herbal category, in case you're wondering, I have really listed these herbs in a rough order of cathartic strength. And this is why I put them in this particular list for you. And the first 4 herbs, and even a few of the other ones, are some of the strongest cathartic herbs, or create the strongest peristalsis in our bowel. And all these herbs contain a chemical called what? What group? Anthraquinone. And there's a specific anthraquinone. What was it called? Imodin. Whew. Uh-oh, write that one down on the little list. No for the test. Imodin, E-M-O-D-I-N, which is a specific anthraquinone. And imodin has been found in many plants, and imodin is a very interesting chemical, and it causes strong contractions of smooth muscle. And I have seen experiments where they've, these are medical experiments, where they've actually taken intestines out of people's bodies who had died, spread them out on a table and pinned them down, spread imodin over the intestines, and the intestines still jumped. Okay? This is a direct chemical reaction between the anthraquinone imodin and the cells on a smooth muscle surface. Okay, so it isn't like you have to digest this. It doesn't have to go through your bloodstream. It doesn't work to your brain first and then through your nervous system. This works directly on the smooth muscle surface of the bowel. And to date, I haven't seen anybody that's been able to stop that from happening. So if your question is, will these herbs help anybody have a bowel movement? Yes. I have seen babies that were born without any nerve impulse to their colon at all. therefore their bowels didn't work, and the doctor said there was no way their bowels would work, and these herbs made their bowels work just like normal. Okay, so you don't even need an nerve impulse to your bowel, because these herbs directly will cause that bowel to contract. One of the strongest is aloes. I didn't see it much on the market when I first started using it. I discovered it because it's a horse laxative, or was used as that. And I also discovered that I was coming against chronically constipated people, and I needed something very powerful to get their bowels working. When you start talking about people that have one bowel movement every 7 days, 10 days, 1 month, or our new winner of the prize, the attorney with once every 2-month bowel movement, we need some powerful stuff. This formula here I used to package in cotton bags that said TNT Herbal Explosive on them because I wanted something very strong. Aloes probably generally has more amodin than any other plant. Second coming would be senna leaf and pod, and third Cascara sagrada. And then even aloe vera, that species of plant, does have amodin in it, but nowhere near the amount of amodin that's in the aloes that is generally called caper curacao, meaning that it either comes from Africa or it comes from Central America, the Caribbean, South America. Those varieties, the species would be Ferox or spicata. Aloes ferox, Aloes spicata, contain a high amount of amodin. When we get into more of a medium strength laxative herb, we would talk more about buckthorn bark, or Christopher mentioned butternut, or Turkey rhubarb or China rhubarb. And then we move down to herbs that really don't cause catharsis because they have a peristaltic action, more because they just start sliming up your intestines. Mucilaginous plants, oily plants. And there's where we get more into licorice and carob and slippery elm and flaxseed. And at the bottom I listed a few formulas. One formula, of course, Dr. Christopher's Fenelby formula. I've listed my intestinal corrective #1 formula. And then under that I put bentonite clay fruit pectin, because many people put together some type of formula that involves those two ingredients as a bowel drawing or cleansing formula. I make one that's marketed in Europe, and I also market it in this country, called Herbal Home Colonic, which is a bentonite clay fruit pectin formula. Many people manufacture a formula like that. But beyond herbs that we can use to clean out the bowel, what about foods? So I have put certain foods that are also, you know, how do we divide foods and herbs and foods? We really don't. Foods are herbs and herbs are food. But some of these herbs I think more of as foods here. I have cayenne, garlic, and ginger. Now these work in the bowel in a different way. We could almost call them irritants. They get in the bowel and the bowel goes, wow. We get a lot of blood flow to the bowel, and the bowel wants to empty itself. Enough garlic, enough cayenne, enough ginger, and it'll work just as strong, if not stronger, than a cathartic herb. Beyond that, I have fiber. Certainly fiber helps our bowel work better, and one of the reasons many of us have had dysfunctional bowels in the past is not enough fiber in the diet. So I've listed here some bran, just eating fruits and vegetables, getting the fiber in them. Psyllium seeds, which is a plantain family. Plantago ovata, which is very similar to Plantago major or lanceolata, which are the two types of plantain that we use, we talk about mostly. Let's not forget prunes. Okay, prunes are wonderful to get the bowel working, and prune juice. Apples, of course, and figs. In England, they sell in Boots Pharmaceutical, they sell this wonderful product called California Syrup of Figs, which is a fig syrup with senna and I think fennel in it as a carminative. And I remember when I first saw that, I was with David, and I thought, wow, look at this. An actual fig juice with senna and a carminative herb. This is wonderful. And I grabbed a bottle of it, and I ran outside, and I was drinking it. outside, and the people must have thought I was a real laxative junkie. And it worked really well. I can attest to that. It really cleaned me out. And you couldn't buy that in California if you paid $1 million for it. We wouldn't sell something like that in a pharmacy. So in England, you do have an advantage of, even in Boots, there are probably 150 herbal products that we would never have in this country. What's that? Broad. Syrup of figs. And we don't have that in California. And it even says it's California syrup of figs on the label. So we've pretty much wiped out all herbal medicine in our pharmacies. So don't forget figs. And then at the bottom there I have natural sauerkraut, fermented veggies, seed and nut cheeses, Rejuvelac, and soy yogurt. And of course we're experiencing probably the finest fermented foods right here. And if you haven't had it in the kitchen, you need to look farther. The Regenerative Foods brand. They make nut butters. We have their raw nut butters, and we also have their kimchi and fermented sauerkrauts. And what we're talking about here in this last category is how to stimulate our intestinal flora, how to reestablish our intestinal flora. And of course, some of the greatest ways are fermented food products. Sauerkraut is a wonderful way to reestablish your intestinal flora. I mentioned Rejuvelac here. I don't know if anybody's heard of Rejuvelac, Ann Wigmore's fermented wheat water drink. You can pick up any one of Ann Wigmore's books, and they will tell you how to make Rejuvelac. It's incredibly difficult. Throw wheat in water, let it sit 24 hours, drink the water. But that's all it is. It's just enzyme-rich wheat water. You can make your own seed and nut cheeses. Many books tell you how to do that. And there's even soy yogurts on the market now that are cultured soy milk instead of cultured animal milk that will help you get these natural enzymes and also the bacteria back in your bowel. And then under natural routines, I have many. Probably the greatest, one of the greatest reasons for constipation is just dehydration. You talk to most gastroenterologists and they'll say that people should consume 2 quarts of liquid a day. You talk to colonic therapists and they'll say, well, at least 4 ounces an hour of water to have your bowel work normally. So one of the, the bowel, one of its great jobs is to absorb water out of our fecal matter and take that back into our system. So if we're not drinking enough liquid, our fecal matter becomes hard and dry and then it won't come out at all. So one of the greatest ways you can just increase your bowel's ability to eliminate is drink enough water. So a minimum of 2 quarts of water a day. I have here enemas, high enemas, even colonic irrigations. Oil, adding oil to your system. Just, using more oil will help your bowel work better. I mentioned here a liver gallbladder flush. By the way, tomorrow morning, for those of you that aren't staying here, don't have anything to eat before you come. And for those of you that are staying here, don't have anything. And we're going to do a liver gallbladder flush in the morning. And I assure you that it's not anything intense. Nobody's going to throw up or have diarrhea or anything. We're going to make a very mild one so we can start our day out, and then we'll have some detoxification tea afterwards, which will be really nice. So we all need to know what a liver flush is and how to do it. I use it all the time as a cleansing routine with people. So we're going to make that in the morning. So no food or really drink except water before we start class tomorrow. And I also mentioned here massage and body work. If the colon doesn't work on its own, let's push it. Let's stimulate it. Let's get our fingers in here and get this abdominal area stimulated. I mentioned emotional release. Many people need psychotherapy, and psychotherapy helps release the bowel and get it to work. Every organ of the body has positive and negative emotions attached to it. For 100 years, medical science has been saying that our mind and our body are separate units. But in natural healing, we see that the mind is connected to the body. Absolutely, mine is. And we need it to have all our physiological and biochemical functions are related to the mind and depend on that. So every organ has its own positive and negative emotions, and fear is the negative emotion of the bowel. And if we're afraid, our bowel stops working. And movement and exercise, just walking. Just going out for a walk will stimulate our peristaltic action. Just by moving our body will create our bowel to begin the peristaltic movement. This is one of the reasons that most primitive people have much better bowel habits than us, because they get more exercise. And then at the bottom I have don'ts: heavy breads, dairy products, eggs. And then I mentioned opiates and sedatives. If you want to stop your bowel function totally, you can use sedatives, which will constipate you and stop your bowel from working. Any questions on the bowel before we move on?
What was the name of that, let's see, that little area between the colon and outside? What was the name of that? Sphincter?
Yeah, just a sphincter muscle means a round muscle. There are many of them in the body. The anus is a sphincter muscle. And then along our digestive tract, we have many sphincters, like we have a pyloric valve in between our duodenum and our small intestine. Because the timing of all this food, digestion, assimilation, and elimination is important. So we have little valves all the way that allow our body to digest food for a certain amount of time. Then the sphincter muscle opens and it goes through into our other organs, our small intestine. And then we have our ileocecal valve between our ileum of our small intestine and the cecum of the large intestine that then opens and allows the food to pass through. So we have many passageways like that. The other elimination channels I'm going to cover more when we talk about specific herbs for them. So I'd like to really now go into food a little bit and talk about food. Because what I want to do is make sure that when I start talking about plants, nobody thinks I mean, because once we start talking about plants, I'm going to fire them quick, and we're going to talk a lot about this plant for the kidneys, this one for specific for cystitis, this one for the lung. And I don't want anybody to ever think that I would do any of that without doing everything we're talking about now. Do you understand what I mean? This is the foundational program. This is the program that helps people get well, and then we fine-tune it and stimulate it and tone it and excite it and sedate it using our herbs. Right? We're all with me? Okay, good. How's our mouth? Is it fairly clear now? Let's try some more herbs here. No problem.
What one's this?
This one we can actually do a dropper full. Oh no! Oh no! Spit! No, only kidding.
What is it? What is it? Oh, yeah.
This is alcohol based, so if someone doesn't want alcohol, just let me know, and we won't. Swish this around in your mouth. Don't start it immediately swallowing it, and let's see.
By the time he gets over here, I don't know if I want to.
It's hard being in the back of the room, isn't it?
The tension is incredible.
I have a feeling we're going through our program here. We don't even know.
Oh, sorry, I dripped on you. Pay no attention to the people in the front row who have turned red and having a problem breathing. I assure you I won't give you anything that will really make you sick or hurt you in any way. We're just really learning here how to identify plants from the way they taste. Would you like some? This is okay. You can. And sorry when I mess up your papers walking through a bit. Whew, let's just, we swish that, we swallow it, we'll give ourselves a minute, see what it tastes like.
There's no water in
Oh.
No.
Getting more done?
Water, when you have this in your mouth, is a bit strange anyway.
I know.
While we're tasting this, I'll just cover a couple more handouts I have in here. This is just a handout on basically the problems we have with the bowel and my intestinal corrective formula. And on the back, I've really just talked about it, mentioned what's in it, what it does in your body. So that's what this particular handout is here. Yes. Yeah. And how to use it.
What if you took more than that?
I hope you haven't. Your bowels just will work more efficiently.
Quick, 8 to 12 hours.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's important to experiment with all of this. We don't want to be single marriage counselors, right? Or people that don't know what we're talking about. In other words, how could we possibly tell someone to take an herb that we haven't put in our mouth, tasted, eaten, had the herbal tea, given ourselves an enema with, or whatever? So it's important that we really involve ourselves with all this personally, so we know what we're doing. Also, it's important so we know if we're getting the right product. Does anybody notice anything happening in their mouth? Yeah. So what's this? Echinacea. So if someone gives, we already ate the root, and what happened? Tingling, numbing. If we make an echinacea extract, it should do more than the root. So I'm assuming this is a little more concentrated than the root we had. So there's a lot of echinacea tinctures on the market that I know that when I put them in my mouth, I don't taste anything. Well, maybe that's not a good echinacea tincture. And if someone gives you a root and you chew it, and they say it's echinacea, but it doesn't do that, it's probably not echinacea, or it's very old. I have some echinacea at home that's about 8 years old, some dried out old root. In fact, Anisha, I think, noticed that the weevils had gotten in and eaten through it and made sawdust in the bottom of the jar, and it still makes your mouth tingle, okay, even though it's kind of termite-ridden echinacea root. What's that?
Homeopathic medicine.
Yeah. Very good. So it's very important that you taste these herbs because echinacea is a very popular plant now. It deserves its popularity. It's been popular for really 100 years in herbal use in this country, and popular in Indian use and folk use prior to that. And it's important that we know what it tastes like, so we can tell if it's an echinacea product or not. Let's talk a little bit about food. We all know that in the School of Natural Healing, Dr. Christopher has a food program that he's laid out for all of us. And we talk about that as being the regenerative diet. A food program that's really a vegetarian food program for us to use while we're in the process of healing ourselves. And of course one for us to adopt for the rest of our life. I have numerous food handouts in here that I use in my clinic to share with you, and I have them in a particular order that we'll talk about. I really look at food programs broken down into three categories. One, which is really a food program I call health building, which is basically our vegan food program. And then I have one that's I call purifying. This is just so you can decipher my handouts, which is really raw foods only. And then I have juice fasting. And I put everybody on one of these food programs that comes to me. This being a vegan food program, if you're not familiar with what vegan means, it just means strictly vegetarian. No eggs, no cheese, no dairy, no meat, no fish, no fowl. In Southern California, everybody's basically a vegetarian. At least that's what they tell me when they come to see me, because it's very hip. But this just means your fruits, your veggies, your grains, your nuts, and your seeds only. I've been a vegan since I was 18 years old. So that means a lot of years now, 22. I need a calculator to figure it out. Now, I'm not bragging about that. I had a lot of motivation, right, to stop eating cholesterol. I can't afford to eat any food that's going to plug up my coronary arteries or attach to my heart valves. It'll kill me. That's the bottom line. So I have a lot of energy to be a vegetarian. So this is the program that I've been on for a long time. It's been so many years, I can't relate to anything else. But when I'm not feeling well, I will go to raw foods to purify my body more. And if I want to do some super cleansing, I'll do juice fasting. And so this is just your basic program here that you would probably follow 48 weeks a year. And then maybe 1 week a season, you'd like to go on some raw foods and a juice fast. That's how I suggest people maintain their health, is most of the time just be on a good, healthy vegetarian food program. And then once a season, do a cleansing program for a week. I think that is the ultimate program to stay healthy. Now, for my patients that I work with, I will make them go into the purifying and juice fasting more often, more frequently, more intensely at first as I'm educating them. And then I will let them assume the health-building food program for a long period of time. But in the first 6 months I work with a person, I will probably have them do a fast every month, raw foods for a week every month, juicing for 2-3 days a month. And it depends on the severity of their situation. I've juice fasted once for 60 days, twice for 30 days, and numerous times for all sorts of days in between. I don't know if I got much benefit out of juice fasting for a few months. I feel really good on my fast for a week to 2 weeks, and then after that I don't know if it becomes more of an ego trip or what, unless you have a specific disease that you're trying to heal. If we're talking about having arthritis or cancer or something else, hey, long-term juice fasting is wonderful. And I suggest if some of you haven't juice fasted yet, to experience it, to play with it, see what happens, use different types of juice. It's, you know, most people agreed, Dr. Christopher and many other natural healing doctors agreed that it's the most cleansing food program for your body. It will draw poisons out of your body and flush them out of your system more effectively than either raw foods or cooked foods. So it's our most cleansing program. This is a handout on the health building program that basically just describes the regenerative diet and my thoughts and feelings about it. And I also, you can see here that I suggest a morning nutritional drink that I'll talk about a little bit later with some superfoods in it. This handout is a very old handout that's a little bit more written by me when I was a natural healing evangelist. And it's raw foods, and I really like it, so I threw that in. And then this one describes a 7-day raw food and juice fast program that I use with most of my patients in my clinic. So these are just the 3 food programs, and you can take a look at them and utilize that material. I suggest that nobody follow the program that I wrote in the regenerative diet, unless you have no taste buds at all. The book, The Regenerative Diet, is great, and we have numerous recipes in there, but I didn't know anybody was going to publish mine, and I was in a weird space at that time, and I think mine consisted mainly of olive oil, wheat germ oil, and some sprouts, so I've changed my eating patterns a little bit since then, but anyway, that's basically what we're talking about here is the mucusless diet, the regenerative diet, the health-building food program. They're all the same thing, which is a vegetarian food program, a food program that it produces health. Yes?
Maybe this is a strange question, but don't you have to change a lot of your lifestyle to do this? I mean, going out with friends is just a natural thing to do. To
sure.
Go out and eat and
absolutely. And take some time. You know, I know some of you, I used to look at Dr. Christopher and think, well, there's no way I can reach that level. Do you know what I'm saying? There's no way that I can be like this man, that I can do these things. And I've always looked up to everybody I've studied with and felt that. But then I just, you know, you put one foot in front of the other, you know, and then it's like, okay, I made it here. And, you know, I would get a little nervous. Remember, I opened my refrigerator when I cut out dairy, and it was like, what do I have to eat? And then you kind of, you know, it's just walking. And remember, how long did it take me to go from the drug using, passed out at Woodstock in the rain? I remember Richie Havens, and then I passed out and fell down the hill. And that was Friday night, so I missed Saturday and Sunday. I was tripped out in another galaxy. Smoking, drinking, coffee drinking, meat eating, negative thinking, jerk, okay, to becoming the wonderful person I am now. But how long of a period did I talk about? Yeah, 3.5, 4 years. So don't be hard on yourself. It's one step at a time. Yes, Reed.
One thing, when I was working down at the herb shop, we were always talking to people on the phone about following the nutritional diet, and a little wave of hypocrisy came over me because I hadn't even tried it, and so I decided I'm gonna try it.
Yeah.
And so I started doing it, and I stuck with it real hard for about 5 days.
Yeah.
And which doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it is, especially when you consider that there's hardly any place in Utah, at least,
Yeah.
that you can go out and eat
Yeah.
and follow that diet at all.
Absolutely.
And it's like what Tamara was saying.
Yeah.
There's an incredible lifestyle change that has to go along with that.
Yeah.
Because you can't go to friends' houses and eat.
I agree. And you'll find, too, that's important, that I remember when I stopped drinking alcohol, I lost a lot of friends. They were all the friends that I got drunk with. And I remember when I stopped taking drugs, all these people that I thought were my friends really weren't my friends. They were just people I bought drugs from and sold drugs to. Do you know what I'm saying? And I realized the true friends I had that I still have today, it didn't make any difference what I ate or drank or the type of drugs I took or whatever. So you will lose friends along the way too. People that sometimes think you're weird. But really what we're talking about is building health and wiping out disease and really creating a new life for ourselves and our family and the people around us. So it does take a lot of evolvement, and you will get ridicule. And it's important that we support people like David and Fawn, because I know that David's ordered whole baskets of organic produce and hasn't been able to sell it. And so if you're in this area, let's get into the herb shop. This is an advertisement. And buy this organic produce so it doesn't rot on his shelf and he doesn't lose money. Because we all have, you know, this is also part of this whole social environmental change that we're doing. Because by you doing your little part and then helping David who's doing his little part, which ends up supporting the family of the organic farmer who did his little part, which produces less toxins and poisons into the environment, you know, we're creating a whole network and a whole system, a whole family to heal this planet. It really will change things on a gigantic level. But what it takes is us to put that one foot in front of the other and start. And I know what you're saying, and I still experience that myself with certain people. I get asked to all types of openings and events and parties. And I have a lot of clients that are afraid to invite me to a party because they think that I'm going to stand up on the table and talk to them about eating the dead flesh and scabs that are on the plate. And I'm not going to do that. I'm a fun guy. I like to dance and do party a bit, you know. I didn't, just because I stopped all my crazy stuff in the 60s didn't mean that I lost my sense of humor. And people will begin to see that being healthy can be fun. It can be hip. In Southern California, it's extremely hip right now to be healthy. And getting sick is not hip. And I know that at times in my life I thought smoking cigarettes was very cool and things like that. But the bottom line is when you're dying of lung cancer, it's not cool anymore. And we're getting smarter. And food is getting better. Marie Callender's makes a no-sugar apple pie now. Everywhere we go, we see this. We see that people are taking steps to have less sugar, less animal products, right? We know there's not too many people now that think that a big, thick, old, juicy prime rib is going to make us healthy. Do you know? And so even though it is ridiculed a bit here and there, everywhere is slowly moving in that direction. So just take it at a pace that's comfortable for you. Even on the back of my health building food program, I say here, I'm a strict vegan vegetarian, and I have been for many years. I also acknowledge that nobody ever died from eating a hamburger, a chocolate bar, or a glass of beer. That was put in for my English class. That was a joke. So remember, it's not what you do on holidays, New Year's, your birthday, or Saturday night. It's what you do 5 or 6 days a week that decides your level of health. I constantly see more people doing more damage to their system emotionally by eating some junk food than it will actually do in their system physically. Do you know what I mean? I've done that many times, you know. We have a joke now, because we eat meat by accident. We'll go places and we'll have a dish and we'll go, wait a minute, this is kind of rubbery for vegetarian food. And then we found out that someone has put some meat in it. And then the joke is, you've only been a vegetarian for 30 seconds now. You can't claim the 22-year. You know what I'm saying? You got to joke about it, okay? Laugh about it, and not take all this too seriously. You can make yourself sick. That's how I got the name Cayenne, remember? More cayenne in my beard than in my mouth. You can always tell the people that are fanatics. They're the ones that have the green mustache from eating too much spirulina, right? The yellow lips from the nutritional yeast that's stuck to them. You know, you got to have a sense of humor about this. Yes?
When people come to see you, do you put everyone on a cleansing program right away?
Everybody, but not right away. It depends on what's wrong with them. And we're going to go more into that, but like if they have cancer, immediate. Okay, immediate either juice fasting or raw foods. If they won't, I won't work with them.
What chronic fatigue?
Chronic fatigue, I'll give them a few weeks to go into that. If people just want a general health tune-up, I'll try to get them stabilized on a good vegetarian food program, the regenerative diet. So it all depends on where they're at and how much time I have. Because see, with cancer and AIDS and things like that, I don't have a lot of time. So I got to make sure that my program is intense enough before they drop dead. But everybody eventually gets to the health building food program. And I've had clients for 15 years that are friends of mine that come to see me still, but they don't follow a vegetarian diet totally. But they know that when they're not well. See, this is the big difference here. We're talking about natural healing, right? So if someone comes to me and they're ill and they want to get well, there's no room for a cigarette or a beer or a hamburger or a chocolate bar or nothing. I'm incredibly strict about that. If we're talking about Saturday night, hey, that's a whole different thing, right? We're talking about somebody's birthday party. No one ever died from a piece of cake and ice cream. But we're talking about getting well. And when you're talking about getting well, there's no room for animal foods at all. Period. End of story. When we're talking about healing ourselves from acute or chronic disorders. So that's where we draw the line. We ready to taste more? Our mouths clear? Let's see here. This one's hard. Here's another root. Going to have strong teeth by the end of today. I'm going to pass this root around, break off a little piece. Coming in the back here. And all the way to the back. Right on. Let's break off a piece of this. Again, put it in our mouth. It's a root, so we have to mix saliva with it, chew it up, taste it. Let's see what we think. Huh? It's powdery. I think the weevils, is this one the weevils got into? No. Does everybody have a piece? Mix it with some saliva, chew down on it, and let's see what we think, what we taste, what kind of taste we get. Is this echinacea? Let's talk a little more about the food. What are we noticing from this?
Sure wasn't dipped in sugar?
Yeah, it may have been.
Very
Sweet. That's the first thing we get. So you can see already now, you're being able to tell what's so funny.
What's going on here?
You're being able to tell herbs apart by tasting them. This machine right here, this thing, okay, as far as I'm concerned, is as sensitive or more sensitive than any scientific equipment I've ever seen. Okay, we've just burned it up with salt and sugar, and you know, we've destroyed our tongue, but our taste buds are incredible. We should be able to taste the difference between every herb that we talk about. We all taste sweet. What is this? Licorice. Okay, so at root it looks like echinacea, but it isn't. It tastes very different. And if someone gives you a licorice tincture, it should be incredibly sweet. It should taste just like this, but more concentrated. It should taste like sugar syrup. I wanted to give you this so you didn't accuse me of giving you just awful tasting things. Because everything else I have here is intense.
I get sick because it's too sweet.
Yeah. You can dilute licorice, I think something like 1 in 100,000, and still taste the sweetness. And I've always wondered why people don't dry this, powder this, and just use it as a sweetener in their cooking if they need a little bit of sweet. It's a nice way to do it. Any questions on food? Because I'm not going to stay long in here because I know we've already heard a lot about food and food programs and the regenerative diet, and we all know pretty much what to eat and what not to eat. And I will cover these food programs later when I start talking about diseases, what food programs I suggest, and how to move from one to the other. So we'll go through that. So really, when we look at this chart, we've covered intake and elimination, really the importance of getting our elimination organs and working and cleaned, and then also the food that goes in our body. This is the majority of being healthy, because it's this food that builds this stuff. You know, this thing up here that you see that you call cayenne is built and nourished by food. Our cells require nourishment. They get that nourishment from the food we eat, and then this body is maintained by that cellular nourishment. So this is going to reflect the food that comes into my mouth. It's all this big circle. So, you know, depending on the quality of the food and the quantity of the food that I introduce into my system, that's going to reflect in the quality of this being right here. So if we want to improve the quality, we improve the food program. It's a nice, simple way of thinking about it. I'd like to brief a couple of the final subjects before we go quicker into herbs. One of them here, you see movement. Unless you move your body, you can't be healthy. There are many physiological functions of the human body that require you to move, to be healthy, and to work well. What might be one of them that we talk a lot about in natural healing?
Walking.
Yeah, and what functions of the body might require exercise in order to work well? Digestion. We mentioned that. You have to move or you don't have enough peristaltic action. So exercise. Lymph system, a classic, because we have a bloodstream that's pumped by the heart, but we have a white blood system that has no pump at all. And without muscular contraction and deep breathing, our lymphatic fluid pools, degenerates, and may be one of the precursors of a lot of cancerous conditions or immune problems. So there's many aspects of our body. Our nervous system. It's very important. Dr. Christopher always talked about one movement to heal the nervous system. Does anybody remember what that was? This is off the tapes.
Just the one jumping up and down?
Well, that's one, but a specific thing that he said to release the static electricity from your body.
Take your shoes off.
Yeah, take your shoes off and get outside and touch this planet that we live on. Dr. Kuster always talked about the energy that comes in our body through our head and then dissipates out through our feet. And I used to do some electrical work when I was working my way to buy expensive books like the Merck's Manual, and some plumbing and construction, anything I could do to work my way into this field. And one thing I realized early on in electricity is don't put your finger in a light socket, and don't, you know, put things in the wall sockets. Don't touch the little screws on a switch when you're replacing it if it's hot, because you get a shock. You get hurt. And I realized that with my sneakers, my rubber sneakers on some nylon carpet, I got a shock. But then I heard about other people that were standing barefooted in water that got welded. Okay? What's the difference? You're grounded. Okay? And so all electrical is grounded. It's grounded to plumbing pipes that ground into the earth. I have seen people grow plants on balconies that didn't grow very well, but then put a copper wire in the dirt and run it down to the earth and plug it in, okay? And the plants grew because now they were connected to the planet. We need to connect, and many times, especially in cities, working on the 14th floor of a skyscraper with synthetic soled shoes on nylon carpeting, we get hysterical. We get crazy. Next thing we want to do is bomb countries or say strange things or fight with people. We're all ungrounded. And the way we get grounded is to touch the planet. So it's important that every day you get your shoes off and you get outside and touch the earth and ground yourself and get rid of the static electricity. It's also healing to the nervous system. And there's a lot of physiological ways that exercise and movement and grounding absolutely heal our nervous system. I have people that come to me with what could be called chronic insomnia. People that haven't slept for days, sometimes weeks, sometimes months without sleep, and it's killing them. Sleep deprivation is torture, used as torture by many countries, and it will eventually kill you without getting your sleep. I have a wonderful cure for that, and it's basically I take people down to the beach and I throw them in the ocean. And when they come out, I roll them in the sand, and they have sand all over them. I find big clumps of seaweed and put it on their head, and I make them run up and down the beach and laugh a little bit, and I throw them in the water. I did this to a lady not that long ago who had chronic insomnia that nobody could cure. And she called me and told me that she fell asleep driving home at the wheel and almost killed herself. That would have been a patient death. And the point is that most of us are just keyed up and we're not releasing that electricity, and we're very uptight and nervous, and we just need to exercise more. Exercise is a great emotional release, isn't it? I've had people come in my clinic that were just like, hey, how you doing? Fine. And I go, well, you don't seem like it. Everything's fine. You know, you get that kind of answer. Sometimes we get that from the person we live with. You sure everything's okay? I said everything's okay. You know, I call that lockjaw sometimes when people start talking but their lips aren't moving and they're really uptight. And many times I've taken patients like that outside and we've just done a run for a half hour to where we're dripping sweat, and then they'll start crying or laughing and tell me about their dog that got run over last night, or their new car they bought and someone scratched it with a key, or whatever it is that they were freaked out about. But the way to move through that emotional stuff is moving your body. Whew. Whether it's barefoot shuffling, whatever it is, get grounded. You know, we all have different ways. Martial arts, David's got his mountain bike. Anisha's involved in Aikido and gardening. I mean, we all have ways to move our body, and they're all wonderful. Just get out there and move it and exercise. And this is incredible. You know, in our body, we have nerve cells, and they're all next to each other like this. And when we think a thought like move my arm up, how that actually happens is each nerve cell has to communicate with the next one. And there's a little spark, a little fusion that goes on in between these particular cells. And there's a chemical in there that's called a neurotransmitter, acetylcholine, one of the B vitamin complexes. And that acetylcholine actually gets burned up, and there's a residue that's left in between each nerve cell. And if that residue builds up, the nerve cells can no longer communicate with each other. And we get nervous dysfunction or even nervous disease. And there's only one thing that I know of that actually flushes that out, and that's the movement of the lymphatic system. And you move the lymphatic system by moving your body. And that's why one of the reasons after a good workout, all of a sudden all these things that seem so important in life and seemed like they were such hot issues, now it's like, I think we'll deal with it tomorrow. Has anybody ever experienced that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exercise is a great release. So a good way to start is get out and get grounded, even if it's just walking outside and barefoot and shuffling our feet around. It really is incredible what a healing that can be. And it's simple. As far as aerobic type exercise or burning fat, I find most of us have to burn fat. Remember, I want to be Curly of the Three Stooges, right? So my body wants to put on fat, throw out hair. So I have to work to not be really big and not carry around too much body fat. It's nice to have some, but not too much. So one way we can work on that is moving our body aerobically. And so exercise is an important part. Now, exercise can be fun. I love the martial arts. I mean, I just love it. It's so interesting to me. And I would get great workouts for years, never really thinking about working out. So pick an exercise that's fun for you, that you enjoy. Don't just go get on some machine and be miserable. Do you know what I'm saying? And get toys. I find that toys help us exercise. You know, my toys are karate gis and belts and martial arts equipment, and it's fun and it's entertaining and I get a workout. But when I go to the gym, I have this $175 it costs. It straps around my chest, and then it radio controls to a watch, and it tells me exactly what my heart is. And then I can punch in my best fat burn and aerobic rate, and it beeps to me and it tells me if I need to speed up or slow down. Now, a lot of my patients go, wow, that's $175. But I'll see them blow $175 on one pair of curtains. Do you know what I'm saying? We have to get our priorities straight here. $175 is about 20 minutes in a hospital, right? Okay? If any of these things that I'm talking about saves you from being in a hospital, wasn't it a worthwhile investment? I'd much rather buy one of these things. But buy toys. You know, sometimes you don't like to go out and walk, but if you buy that really cool looking jogging suit that makes you look you know, really good, then all of a sudden your chest goes out, you feel better about yourself. Do you know what I'm saying? Toys. You know, David's got his mountain bike. It's a toy. It makes you want to go out and move your body and play. So I suggest that my patients buy lots of exercise toys that they can play with, and it keeps you entertained. And when you get bored with it, get new toys to keep you moving your body. Stanford and many other universities have come out with ways that we can figure out what our cardiac rate should be, how fast should our heart beat when we exercise. And I'll give you one of the latest ones that's come out. And basically you take the figure of 220. A lot of them start with this. You deduct your age, say you're 40, and you come up with a figure of 180. Now, to make this more accurate, it's great to then subtract your resting pulse rate, because some of us, our resting pulse is 40, some 80, some 110. So let's say our resting pulse rate is 80. So we subtract that, this is resting pulse, and we come up with 100. And then to further customize this, you can multiply it by 60%, 70%, and 80%, or 0.6, 0.7, and 0.8 for beginners, intermediate, and advanced. If you're out of shape and you're not used to working at it all, multiply this times 0.6. If you're not bad but not great, 0.7, and if you work out a lot, 0.8. But let's say we're a beginner, so we'll go 60% of this, or times 0.6, and we come up with what? 60. We add back our resting pulse rate of 80, and we come up with 140. 140 is our best exercise rate to maintain. This is one of the latest ways of figuring that out. Now we can change that, of course, with our resting pulse rate, and that figure will change. Now you don't have to be exact with that. You can say, well, 130 to 150 is a great pulse rate. And then if you divide that by 4, you get your 15-second count. Okay, so say it's 140, well, half of that is 70, and half of that is 35. So your pulse should beat 35 beats every 15 seconds when you're working out. And you can just check that with a watch or a clock on the wall. And this is called your workout or your training or your target heart rate. And if you keep it in the lower end, it also burns more fat. If you keep it in the higher end, it burns more sugar. So if you really want to burn more fat, keep it down towards the 0.6. Some people think the harder they work out, the more fat they burn, but it doesn't work that way. You can burn a lot of sugar and still keep a lot of fat in your body. Now, do you realize that weight loss is an $8 billion industry in the United States? $8 billion. And it's estimated that 99% of all weight loss programs are failures, don't work. And what I find interesting is weight loss is very simple. You just start narrowing what goes in here, and you have more output. It's very simple science. Less input, more output. Now, sure, there are lots of things that are attached to that, from psycho-emotional problems to diseases, but it's really that simple. We just have to get out and do it. And it takes a lot of work for some people. We're all different, remember? Some of us are born buffed. I see people that are just like, they don't have to eat anything right and exercise, and they look great. Everything you see here, I've worked very hard to get, I guarantee you. And I don't, just go to sleep for 3 weeks and still look like this. It takes a lot of effort on my part. So let's work on our exercise. That's part of our natural healing routine. It's important to be healthy. I had a great exercise workout yesterday. I ran around for 3 hours in a squirt gun fight with David and Fawn's children. That was my workout for the day. It was incredibly aerobic. I was out of breath. Then I jumped on their trampoline outside, and we had a great day. This doesn't have to be miserable. I see people torturing themselves with exercise all the time, and this is ridiculous. It should be fun. I have one general rule in life. If it's not fun, I quit. Okay? So it needs to be fun. We need to be having a good time, even in here. If anybody stops having fun, let's stop. Let's go outside and tell jokes. We need to make this fun. I work with my clients. It's fun. If I'm not enjoying my relationship with a patient, I quit. I send them to a colleague. I want to be having fun in life. I saw another poll, LA Times, polled 1,000 people. They said, if you had your choice, what would you rather do in life? And all 1,000 had a different answer from what they were doing. The brain surgeons wanted to dig ditches. The ditch diggers wanted to operate trains. The train engineers wanted to be brain surgeons. Do you know what I'm saying? How is this? Is that we're all doing what we don't want to do. So that's a big part of our disease too. So let's get back on track, have fun, enjoy our lives. And exercise is a big part of it. I have down here lifestyle, how we live, work, and play. I had a man with leukemia that worked in a pain factory. In order to get cancer-free, he had to quit his job. In order to be healthy, sometimes we have to have dramatic changes in our lifestyle. And this is kind of what you were talking about a little bit, except you're not sick right now. But people that come to me that are ill, they're forced very quickly to make these dramatic changes. I have patients that sometimes after working with me 2 or 3 months sit in my office and say, I don't know who I am anymore. And I go, wonderful. This is great. I know that I have disrupted their lifestyle so greatly they can't relate to who they are anymore. Therefore, I know I have disrupted the lifestyle that knew how to create cancer or a heart disease. Do you know what I'm saying? Or whatever it was. And that's what we have to do to help people get well. Our cameraman, I forgot your name. Al. Al was sharing with me at lunch that his mom had colon cancer and that she had a colostomy. And we were talking about that, and I said, well, the main thing we got to do is figure out for her how not to get colon cancer again, or cancer somewhere else in her body. We have to change her lifestyle dramatically enough to where she won't grow it again. And that's really the key, because most people don't come to me for prevention. Most people come to me very ill. And I have to not only get them well, but create a system of wellness where they won't get sick again. And that's really what we're talking about here. And so lifestyle is important. You must enjoy your work. Have a good time. You know, most of you are here because this is what you want to do, or it's a career change. This is great. I can't think of a more honorable way to make your living in life is helping other people. This is a wonderful thing to do. It's important that we take time off to play and do nothing and enjoy ourselves and have some laughs. And emotions and spirit is the last category that we've talked briefly about. You know, most of us have inherited bad emotional habits. I inherited plenty from my mom and my dad, and plenty from the public school system. And the Rolling Stones even told me I can't always get what I want. Do you know what I'm saying? And we listen to it. You can't always get what you want. You know, you start, listen to songs. I mean, who's lately heard a positive country and western tune? Good for you. Now, I'm not putting down that form of music because I love all kinds of music, but most music is about bummers. And we start singing it. I was teaching a course in Spain last year, and this is really interesting. I got to back up. I was on a plane flying to Spain, and I was flying to Europe, and I was sitting next to a woman, and I'm a pretty fun guy. I mean, I might look a little scary at first, but I can get along with everybody, find something to talk about, have a few laughs. And I was sitting next to this young lady who was a rock and roller. And I realized that people were making a big fuss about her, and I didn't recognize her, but you know, I keep my head buried in Merck's manual so much, I don't pay attention to a lot of other things that are going on. And she was really miserable and a nasty person and just not very nice. And I was watching what she ate and the alcohol that she drank, and and she didn't like me. I kind of classified her. I classify people as a lot of things. I classified her as a man-hater. Because I could see that she just didn't like men. Every man on the plane really got it from her. And I know there's men that are women haters, okay? So I'll be fair about this. But then I was in Spain, and one of the students during a break was playing some rock and roll, and the song, I don't know the name of it, but the line was, "You hurt me and I hate you." And it was that over and over again. You hurt me, and I hate you. And I thought, first of all, this person is not taking responsibility for themselves, because really we can only hurt ourselves, right? I mean, think about it. We have to take responsibility for here, not be a victim. And I hate you. And I thought, and everybody's kind of singing, you hurt me, and I hate you. And it turned out to be the same lady's album that I had met on the plane. So a lot of this music is produced by people who are miserable, constipated, dysfunctional, sick people. So, you know, that's the average American, right? That's the average person in this world. So most of the music is made by that. And that's why we see some of this really bizarre stuff out there and hear these bizarre lyrics. So we are responsible for what we sing and hum And we're all being brainwashed. I mean, we've all walked down the street and done, double your pleasure, double your fun with doublemint, doublemint, doublemint. Why am I singing that? Right? Because we get brainwashed. TV, radio, we're all brainwashed. We need to wash our brains daily of this stuff. And I'm not going to pick on any particular artist or type of music or anything. It's nonpartisan. It goes through all aspects of music, from operas to rock and roll to country and western to jazz to blues. Yes?
Even child books and that, Jack and Jill Hill, Jack Fell Down.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we have to create a new culture of people that are much more positive and much more life affirmative. I mean, how many times have you said, well, I can't add that, I've never been good at math? Well, if you keep reciting that, you'll never be good at math. We need to have good affirmations, and I find that the worst affirmations I hear are amongst my patients that have cancer and or AIDS and or severe immune depressive diseases. And Harvard University has done some incredible studies, and one study that was recently published was the fact that David's talked a little bit about cells, and you've all heard about cells, and Christopher talked about cells, but on the surface of most cells are what we might call docking areas or receptors, because our cells need to communicate with all the other cells in our body, right? And they talk and communicate and actually touch each other and dock, kind of like spaceships sometimes, and what we see on Star Trek, and communicate with each other. And recently, Harvard Medicine released a report that showed that on every immune cell, so that would be a T cell, a B cell, any type of immune cell, they all had one receptor that was a neuropeptide. Does anybody know what a neuropeptide is? A neuropeptide is a chemical that's made by our brain every time we think. Every thought we have. If you think lift the arm, the brain creates neuropeptides. That's what sends our whole body into action. Every thought, happy, glad, sad, upset, everything we think, our brain creates a neuropeptide. Now this is a very interesting discovery, because why would an immune cell have a neuropeptide receptor on it? What this means is that our immune cells dock to neuropeptides, read those chemicals, and adjust their activity off of the neuropeptides. So what that really means is that our immunity is constantly listening to our emotional dialogue. Think about that. Constantly listening to what's going on in our mind. So if we're saying, well, I'm old, I'm feeling old, you're going to be old, and your immunity won't work. So there's a lot to this positive attitude stuff, positive affirmations. If you think I'm a real strong person, and I'm healthy, and this stuff never makes me sick, this is what your immunity is going to do. It's going to be supercharged. And there are many, many tests and studies that have shown this, but now medicine is really starting to show the body-mind, especially the body-immunity connection. So if someone else is constantly saying, you're stupid, you're dumb, you're never any good, your immune system isn't going to work very well. And I find that it's almost directly proportional, the degree of people's negativity and the degree of their degenerative disease. It's incredible. You wouldn't believe the stuff I hear from my cancer patients. There was another study that showed that everybody who's ever had cancer within the prior 2 years had a tremendous emotional shock to their life that they couldn't process or deal with. So I'm not going to move too deeply into the emotions, but it's really, really, really important to take a look at all these aspects, from our food to our elimination to our exercise to what's going on up here to be healthy. Dr. Jensen once in one of his lectures said that he knows of one substance that's more alkaline than even carrot juice at healing your body, and that was love. I think that's a powerful statement. And think about it. How do we feel when we are in love and being loving? And then how do we feel when we are hating? Okay, what's it doing to our body? Part of my healing, remember I talked about part of my healing being learning how to be a loving person? To put out the love and to accept love in was as important for my heart as cayenne pepper and a no cholesterol food program. You can't skip any aspect of this. So really it's nice to look at our affirmations and the way we think about ourselves and the way we talk about whether or not we deserve things or not. And you'll constantly hear people's negativity. I hear my own. All the time. I've been brainwashed since birth with negativity. It's going to take us generations to get rid of this negativity that we all carry around and have. And so we all need to work on that. And if there was one last thing I might mention about healing that I've experienced that's powerful, that goes almost in the emotional category, is cleaning out your life by throwing things away. I get most of my clients to do what I call trashing their houses, which means going through your house and finding things that you don't need anymore or that are really part of the old you or that you don't have anything in common anymore. Rocannon, most of you have met him. A great trashing that I did with him is I went over to his house and we ripped up and destroyed all his pictures from Vietnam, even his honorable discharge. Because he was so attached to the trauma of the war. And that was an incredible healing. He cried for days. I mean, it was a big healing for him. It's important that all of us look in our life and see, do we really need this anymore? Is this healing me or making me sick, these particular material possessions? And we put power into these possessions to do that. I many times find with my cancer clients, when I go to their house, oh boy, there's no room at all, and it's all, oh yeah, well this is a memory I had of this, and there's nothing new. It's all old, it's all dead, it's all degenerating, it's all old stuff. I was called by a woman who was bedridden in her house with emphysema and asthma. And I went to her house, and it was just loaded with junk. And she was screaming at the maid, saying that I have to live in a dust-free environment. She was wheezing and coughing up mucus, could barely breathe, had blue lips, and screaming at the maid to clean on top of the doors. She asked me if I could help her. I said yes. And one thing that I really saw was her house was filled with old stuff. And I said, you really need to cleanse your house. And she said, I'll do anything. And so I said, I'll come back tomorrow. And I came back the next day. I had my karate gi on. I had a big machete and a hammer. And I went from one end of her house to the other and just threw stuff out. And she went hysterical, cried, called her friends, said, there's a madman in my house, quick, if you want anything. I got rid of her color TV, her bed, everything. All I left was her stereo and one dresser, I believe, even threw the bed out because it had a horsehair stuffing or something. And then shortly after that, she got robbed, and they took the carpet and the stereo. So I guess I didn't do a good enough job. I found that to be interesting. But I remember she had hair in a crystal bowl from her dog. And I said, where's your dog? And he said, well, he died 14 years ago. Do you hear what I'm saying? This kind of stuff will also promote you to be ill, all this stuff. So it's nice to, you know, I help my clients. I say, go home and throw away a quarter of everything you own. The ones that are sick. Some of us can be healthy with all this stuff. But I constantly go through my house and reevaluate what I have and do I need this and all that. Yes?
My wife doesn't quite understand that philosophy. Yeah. I go through the house and I start throwing stuff out. She said, that's good, that's part. I said, please, just let me be. And I get to the point, the more she tries to stop me, the madder I get.
Yeah. For some people, the greatest healing is just to get rid of everything. You know, sell the house. I know people that's houses are killing them. Can anybody relate to that? I'd say about a third of my clients that come down with an acute disease have remodeled their house within the last 2 years. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, this is stress. People are all stressed out about remodeling in their houses and their neighborhoods and where they live and their possessions. And, you know, I've seen people absolutely become tearful when the tube blew on their color television. I mean, come on. Really. Let's get a little more, a little closer to reality. I mean, if you're feeling like that, then you need to buy a plane ticket and go to India. Do you know what I'm saying? You need to go see how 90% of the world lives. This is heaven on earth right here. I mean, if anybody who lives in this country doesn't get it, talk to this man who's been to Vietnam. You know, talk to anybody who's been to the majority of the world where the biggest crisis is, am I going to eat food today? Or am I going to live past the age of 3 without getting some horrible disease? Do you know what I'm saying? We are so blessed in this country with abundance. I mean, we'll be picky. Well, this organic baby green doesn't look as good as this organic arugula. That's my biggest pressure in life. Do you know what I'm saying? Okay, so let's lighten up a little bit, laugh more, and realize how blessed with abundance we are. We have electricity. We have a roof over our head, green grass, clean air. Oh, yeah, I'm not saying there aren't problems, but they're usually not life-threatening. And so how we react to all this stuff is very, very important too. Whew. So enough on that, but I just wanted to point out to you all the important foundational aspects of being well that I have to deal with my patients prior to where I start looking at their illness and then figuring out the natural healing and herbal routines that I do. Does that make sense? So no matter how involved I get in the next couple days with an herb for this or skin brushing to make this physiological change, don't ever forget that this is the majority of my program. Eating right, thinking right, exercising, having good elimination is the foundation of natural healing. Again, that's why we have the name the School of Natural Healing and why this talks about exercise, food programs, recipes, and positive attitudes in here. See a lot of nice references that Dr. Christopher has with positive attitudes. And one thing, a statement I like about this book is right in the foreword. It says, a mastery of the concepts in this book can change a person's life. And boy, it changed mine, and it changes my patients. So this is what I was talking about making enough of a change in your life to where you're a new person. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, you've had a healing. Does anybody have a piece of notebook paper? I got one right here. Thank you, yeah. Yeah. You can see that the color here is golden. We know that. And it should be so intense that, well, it stained my label already. And it'll even, you know, you can see the glass dropper here. What a color that actually becomes. Maybe if I hold it up against here. And of course, this is one of the reasons it's called Golden Seal. So if someone gives you a Golden Seal preparation and it's not yellow or golden, it might not be very good, or it may not be Golden Seal. And what else should it be?
Strong.
Strong, but what does strong mean? Bitter. Bitter. Exactly. Golden Seal is a very, very bitter plant. And see, it's colors and tastes and smells that help us recognize these plants. I would suggest that all of you, with a little help in the next 2 or 3 days, are going to be able to taste and recognize the difference of at least a quarter of the 100 herb lists, just by putting them in our mouth and looking at them and smelling them and using them in enemas. I was seeing if anybody was awake. Do we still taste that? Okay, I'll wait till that clears.
Yeah, really.
I take things and when they interest me and I stick them in this notebook and it gets a bit thick of all sorts of things. Here's, boy, that's pretty scary. It says, well, it disappeared. Sometimes they go as fast as they come. Dr. Christopher, a few times I would ask him for something and he'd go, well, give me a pitchfork and a shovel in 3 days and I'll find it on my desk. And that's my notebook's already becoming that way. You know, many times in the United States, we begin to think that herbs don't work very well, are stupid, are dangerous, are a stupid form of wimpy healing that has no effect compared to modern medicine, which is really the education, the medicine for an educated person, the powerful, the real stuff that works. This is what we've been really promoted to think by the pharmaceutical companies and the American Medical Association. They've done their job. I mean, early on in this century, they legislated words that they could only use. And it was the first time in the history of the United States that any group actually owned words. And of course, those words are diagnose, cure, and prescribe. And unless you're a medical doctor, you can't use those words. And by doing that, they knew that it would make everybody else look like a quack. And they've lobbied all sorts of laws in this country and made things exclusive to them and virtually wiped out all other forms of medicine. But in the rest of the world, it's not this way. And I just wanted to point that out briefly, and I saw this and it reminded me of that. Medicine in this country is an $850 billion a year business. It's 14% of the gross national product of the United States. When General Motors builds a car, per car their cost, it's more in employee health benefits than it is in steel to go into that car. Okay, I want you to get an idea of what we're talking about here. This is why America is broke. Between the military and the medical industry, we don't have any money to do anything else. It is big business. One of the biggest private medical companies in the world is based in the United States. I went to their meeting in downtown Los Angeles honoring the chairman, the CEO, the founder of this company. And it's a private medical group like most hospitals throughout the United States. And this was, I got in, I have a tux in my closet just for these occasions. I was doing my herbal espionage, and I got in and sat down, and he opened by saying, running hospitals is just like running a whorehouse. You can't make money unless you keep all the beds full. Okay, so I just want to show you what kind of people we're dealing with here. Yes?
I was wondering, are the general public, are these...
Oh, this is for medical doctors and business people only, this meeting.
Is this information, these statistics, like the gross national product?
Absolutely.
Is that not being broadcast to the public?
It's available to everybody, but I wouldn't say it's being broadcast. Yeah, LA Times printed it. But people don't know how to relate to that. What's $1 billion? I'm trying to figure out how to pay, put gasoline in my car. So they don't relate to it, and it's big numbers. And, I'm surprised more people aren't outraged by it. The second highest country in the world is Germany, and it's only 7% of their gross national product. So in this country, we're double the spending of the second most biggest spending country of the world. So it's just amazing what we're paying for medical costs in this country. And these medical groups, you can bet your bottom dollar they will try to kill you if you go up against them. Dr. Christopher was incarcerated, and many other people are. There are many people in jail right now today for using alternative therapy to help people get well. This is the best way to run a business. Wipe out the competition. And if anybody tries to compete with you, you have them arrested and put in jail. Does this sound like a free society or a free country? Not to me. And I try to tell Americans that this is not a representation of what the rest of the world is like at all. Okay? Every other country in the world that I have visited, even the Soviet Union, has medical freedom to some extent. We don't have it in this country. It's the one freedom that we do not have. Just look at this. This is Gerard, which is an herbal company in Great Britain. This is a brochure that they present, and I've seen it all over the country. No longer absent from work thanks to Gerard's lobelia compound in tablets. It says here, take action before that chesty cough turns into bronchitis, which is a particularly serious problem in Britain. More than 30 million days are lost in this country each year due to this complaint alone. Avoid the necessity of using antibiotics and chemotherapy by treating the first signs of infection of the upper respiratory tract with Gerard's lobelia compound. This isn't something from the 1880s. This is 1992. Gerard's lobelia compound, which is an herbal remedy with minimal or no side effects when taken in the dosage advised. Antibiotics may produce gastrointestinal disturbances and skin rashes. Other drugs, too, may have secondary effects which are not intended to happen. In the face of such therapeutic hazards, what can be said against modest personal efforts at self-medication to find a solution to your problem? And they tell you how to use lobelia. You would never see that in this country.
It's poison.
Okay? Yeah, it's poison. It can kill you. The FDA tries to take it off the market. Do you see what I mean? You are all in a blackout here, and I want you to know that. Okay?
It only costs about $2 a ton.
What's that?
It only costs about $2 a ton.
Yeah. Yeah, a couple bucks. And see, when I teach over in Europe, my English students, Anisha, our other English student here, they're not used to the medical monopoly that's been created in this country, the lack of medical freedom we have. And I just want you all to realize that this is something that is really almost strictly American. And in this country, we are almost brought up to believe that herbal medicine is something for the grandfather in the attic. Okay, it doesn't really work. It's hocus pocus. And if you're really sick, you need to go to a doctor in a hospital. This is not true. It's just something we've been brainwashed into thinking. The rest of the world uses herbs. I was at an attorney's home in Paris, a high-powered attorney there. He has a little problem sleeping. He was drinking tilia tea. Does anybody know what that is? Lime flowers, yeah. You know, most people in Europe will go to an herb product first before they go to a pharmaceutical drug. Yes?
Isn't it true, though, that in Europe you have to be a pharmacist to sell herbs? At least in Spain it is. I lived in France for a year and a half. And
France has the most has some of the most restrictive laws against herbal medicine.
Germany also.
No, Germany, half of every drugstore is herbal.
But drugstores, I mean, they're very limited
Yeah.
in where you can sell them.
Oh yeah, but you go in a drugstore in Germany and you can buy things in there that I'd go to jail for making. I mean, half the drugstore is herbal products. You know, you can buy valerian tincture in a drugstore in Germany. You'd certainly never see that in a Save-On or Thrifty in this country. Do you know what I'm saying? But I find that the people there, they don't realize that. You know, after a while, you just get used to it when you're over there. And then you come back in this country, and I forget. I'm constantly having to adjust between going back and forth from Europe to here, from what I can't say, what I can say. What I love about coming up here is I can say anything I want. And so I don't feel like I'm filtered. But I have to be careful where I speak at other places, names and places, and as hard as I like to slam the American Murderers Association and other groups like that. So anyway, I just wanted you to see that. I wanted you to see that this country is not a representation of what medicine is like world round. The Queen of England's own doctor is an herbalist. I mean, herbal doctors are widely esteemed. We have now a herbal committee on the new EC regulation in all of Europe, for all of Europe. And Jan de Vries is one of the people that's headed it. And Jan de Vries' daughter was one of this school's students. Okay? And so one of our school students in another country's dad is one of the most prominent doctors of all of Europe. He's respected worldwide. In this country, he'd be incarcerated for what he does. In Europe, they put him on committees. Do you see what the difference is? And so I just want you to see that if you're ever thinking, well, is this really work? Of course it works. You know, every drug manufacturer that exists today, that existed 100 years ago, was an herb supplier. Okay? They just couldn't make enough money. How do you make money when you tell someone to go home and take this, and they can kick a hole in the ground, drop it in, and have more of it for free? Garlic. Do you know what I'm saying? You can't patent this. So pharmaceutical companies developed out of trying to figure out ways to take chemicals out of herbs that people couldn't produce themselves at home. Take the power away from the people and make us addicts to doctors and the pharmaceutical industry. And the job of us here at the School of Natural Healing, and it's really the foundation of this school, is to give the power back to the people to heal themselves so we don't have to be helpless and driven broke by the medical and pharmaceutical industry in this country.
Amen.
Yes. So, that was my political speech. How are our mouths? How about another taste of an herb? Okay. This one is not bad here. And then after this one we'll have a... but if this is an experiment we're doing now. Nobody's going to mind this one. I'm just going to give you 4 or 5 drops.
What is this one?
I can't tell yet.
Yeah.
You'll know.
No, this one actually is pleasant.
Oh my heck, it's not bad compared to the other one.
It's the 40th anniversary of the school.
1953, 93?
You got a yellow tongue.
I can decorate it.
I'm very effective. I've got some, that's Seiko cream cheese at home. It's icing.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
Right here, right in your face.
I know.
This is a nice one, actually.
I gave it out. Not too good, not too
He's holding his hand over his mouth. Are you trying to tell me something? Sorry. What do we think?
Mild.
I don't know.
You don't know what that is? You can't figure it out? That's echinacea and golden seal.
Why do they work so well together? Both of them are kind of...
Yeah. Well, what might we think about this particular echinacea and golden seal? Very weak. Great for children. Not that strong. Very weak. Do you think if I put 4 drops of my echinacea and my golden seal in your mouth, it would have tasted the same? No. Yeah. This is one that's on the market a lot. It's actually one of the top-selling ones. This is Zan's Immune Herbal Echinacea and Golden Seal combination. Well, I think it's got vegetable glycerin and some other things in here and a synergistic base of every herb grown on this planet as far as I can see. And don't get me wrong, my job here is not to tear down other herbalists or their formulas. And Janet Zand, I don't know, may or may not be a good herbalist. I've never met her. And this is one of the top-selling products all over Southern California, and it's evolving all over the country. We see it more. But this is our job. Oh, echinacea and golden seal, great. I want to taste this. You put it in your mouth and you go, it tastes like candy. You know, so, okay, vegetable glycerin can go a long way, but vegetable glycerin wouldn't do much to change these two. Incredibly bitter and incredibly tingling and numbing on your tongue. Does anybody taste any numbing to their tongue at all? Does anybody taste anything bitter? Little bitter. Okay. So I assume that maybe there's none or no echinacea in this, and there might be a little bit of golden seal. Now it says here, ingredients, echinacea, echinacea angustifolia root, and golden seal hydrastis canadensis in a synergistic base of, and then list about 30 herbs that, it's just like a lot of herbs. Again, I'm not putting down this particular product, I'm just saying that...
actually tailored, though.
Exactly. Exactly. This is why we're going to make some herbal preparations in here, a tincture, an ointment, a few things as the week goes on. And you're going to find that even when you mess up at home, you've probably made something better than you can buy in a health food store. Okay? It's kind of like the difference between grandma's home cooking and a TV dinner. Things that are made for the commercial market are many times made in a way to make a lot of money, but not necessarily use a lot of herb to make something incredibly potent. And this is why the things that David manufactures and the things that I manufacture, I always call industrial strength. You know, because David talks with people all day long, and he uses these products, and he's depending on these products to help people get well. And if any of you have had any of the Herb Shop's brand of products, you'll see what I'm talking about. And we're going to go over there tonight, and I'm excited about that. So the point I'm trying to make is that if you know your herbs, and you've tasted golden seal, and you've tasted echinacea, and then someone gives you an echinacea golden seal combination, you know what you expect to taste, and when you don't taste it, I would say that the dosage of this formula should be the entire bottle. Okay? Where the dosage of this should be 15 to 30 drops. And that's what I would dose myself with. And it's what I did dose myself with, because I think I drank half the bottle in the first sip to see if I could taste anything. So this is herbal education here. What we're trying to do is educate our palates to know what herbs are supposed to taste like, what good, strong preparations taste like, and compare them. There was a company out on the market years ago, and every one of their formulas tasted the same to me. And they said they had a special process. Well, maybe the special process was just waving the alcohol in front of the herbs, because I couldn't taste anything. So it's important that you don't take anything for granted, and you taste these things, and then you decide, you be the judge of the quality, the strength, the potency of these particular products. Let's talk about plants. Let's start talking about some individual plants. You've heard what Christopher has said about some plants. You've heard what David has said about some plants. Now you can hear what I think about some plants. And then hopefully you put all this knowledge together and go home, eat these plants, taste these plants, use them, and then see what you think and what happens. I find that, that this is the one thing that I really loved about Dr. Christopher was his extensive knowledge about putting these things in your mouth and what happens in your body. I always feel that, you know, one thing I disliked about public school was it seemed like everybody was passing on knowledge, but nobody knew anything. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, if you want to learn geography, get in the car and drive. Do you know what I'm saying? I think we should take kids in high school with all the money we spend and give them 1 year, take them around the world. You know, let them see what it's really like. I mean, you can look at all the pictures of India in the world and you think it's beautiful. They should be scratch and sniff. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, you got to smell that country and you go, wow, is this what India's like? The death, the burning, the decay. I mean, there's nice stuff too. But do you know what I'm saying? Teachers tend to pass on knowledge and information that they learned from their teachers, and their teachers learned from their teachers, but a lot of times never stepped into that process and had any real learning go on. Do you know what I'm saying? And Dr. Christopher was one of the first men that I studied with that really had experienced these things for himself and with patients, and had applied these rules of natural healing and used these herbs. Okay, let's start with Dr. Christopher has put in this book herbs in many categories. My book is a bit outdated if you have the new version of the book. And you don't even have to have it here. I'm just going to talk a little bit about this. So mine might be a little different than yours. My cover certainly is. I have carving marks all across here where I've been cutting roots for the last many years. The first chapter is alterative herbs. Okay. What does alterative herb really mean? Blood cleanser, blood, change the blood, cleanse it, the blood, cleanse the blood, alter the system, alter the bloodstream. These are our cleansing, our detox herbs. We have a lot of names for these, but most of the great ones here come in the alterative herb chapter. I'd like to talk about a few of these herbs myself because cleansing and detox is a big part of the program that I do with people. It's very popular. Most people that come to you say, I want to cleanse and detox, the same way that they would go to their priest and want to confess their sins. Do you know what I'm saying? My people come in, they go, oh, I've been awful. I need a detox program. Okay, so this is what I do, a big part of my work with people. Let's talk about echinacea a little bit. Echinacea is a plant that has a real interesting history. There's a few stories that I particularly like about it that I'd like to share. Oh, let me back up a second. When we talk about alterative herbs, let's not forget a lot of the alterative other things that we can do. It's really important. I mean, certainly juice fasting, raw foods is blood cleansing alone. There's a book, Joanna Brandt's Grape Cure, a pectin cleansing program. Fruits are very cleansing. All sorts of things that we can do to cleanse our body while we're using alterative herbs. And let me go in order here. Let's start with plantain and a few things that I like about plantain. I think the thing that I like most about plantain is it's the one herb that I know that wherever I go in the world I'm going to find. I can't think of a place that I have been, whether it was in the rainforest, whether it was in Asia, whether it was in California or upstate New York or Europe, anywhere, that I don't find plantain. So I think it's a great herb for us to know because it's abundant all over the world. There's no shortage of it. There are different varieties, but they do the same thing. Dr. Christopher used to talk about plantain being the #1 for blood poison. And when your blood is poisoned, infected, and using it externally and internally for that, the American Indians used to chew it a lot and make poultices. Just chew it and put it on the body, wrap it up, even chewing it and packing it onto teeth and gums that are swollen and infected. It's wonderful. It's good for bites and stings and insect bites and things of that nature. You can even juice it in the juicer, which I've done. It's pretty strong juice, similar to wheatgrass, not quite as intense as wheatgrass, and a very strong, cleansing, purifying, blood cleansing herb. So if you were living in an area and you had a client come to you and they said, well, I have cancer, and you're thinking, boy, I'd really like to get this person on, 3, 4, 6 ounces of wheatgrass juice every day. Well, get plantain juice. It's probably in your front yard. And if it's not in your front yard, it's in your backyard. It's everywhere. And so I'm just, this is a strong blood cleanser, a great alternative to other blood cleansers that we may not have. And again, this is how you're going to build up your herbal of your house, because you're going to have plantain there. So learn about it, use it, eat it. You can put it in salads too. Tastes really nice. Next is red clover. I'd like to just give you a few of my thoughts on red clover. I remember many years ago sitting down with Dr. Christopher and asking him if he could associate with me 1 or 2 words of usage for each of the 100 herbs. And so I would read through the list of the 100 herbs, and he would tell me just what came to his mind as the most prominent thing for these herbs. And there was only one herb that when I mentioned it, he said cancer, and that was red clover. So I think that's something we ought to pay attention to. And if you look under red clover in the School of Natural Healing, you'll see all sorts of cancer remedies using red clover. He actually said to me it was an antidote for cancer. I like that. if you look in Professor King's American Dispensatory, he says that it unquestionably retards the growth of cancer and heals all ulcerated tissue. And if you look through almost every cleansing formula that has been made, you will find red clover in it. From Dr. Christopher's red clover combination to Jason Winter's herbal tea, we have red clover. And red clover, of course, grows all over this area and over many areas of this country, and certainly all over Europe. So it's another great alterative herb, cleansing herb that's available everywhere. And we know, because Christopher told us, that the clovers contain a chemical that thins the viscosity of our blood. Remember that? Called a... Very good. Coumarin or coumaric acid or coumarin. Sure. And red clover contains that, and that's why he was mentioning that some of these herbs are good spring tonics. And of course, red clover is a great one. It will actually sometimes block your liver's ability to utilize vitamin K, so it thins your blood. We have all these people taking 2 or 3 aspirin a day as a preventative towards heart attacks. Because they're afraid their blood is going to clot. They'd be better off drinking a cup of red clover tea. Red clover is one that I use in all my cancer preparations and also in my external poultices. We just made a poultice the other night before we left with a lot of red clover heads for a breast tumor. Poke root. Poke root is a powerful medicinal herb. I do not believe there are any poisonous herbs. I don't even like to use that terminology. There's just strong herbs and medium herbs and light herbs, right? I believe that every herb on this planet has a use, and we just have to be smart when we use it. The taste alone will always tell us how much of this herb we want to use. You've been tasting some medicinal herbs in here, right? Some bitter taste, some strong taste. Poke is one. Poke is a medicinal herb. It was a favorite of Dr. Christopher's. I don't know if David shared with you his poke story. It's one of the best ones. I hear that there's poke deaths in this country. I don't know. I've never met anybody that's been killed by it. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't know. I think those, maybe there have been in the past, but it doesn't taste good. In the south of the United States, people eat fresh poke greens in their salads, as long as it's the young leaves. As plants get older and mature, they become stronger. Poke is a great, great cleanser of the lymphatic system. And when I see people, when I look into their iris and I see that they have inherited a constitution that will make them congestive lymphatically, I think of poke as part of their cleansing program. And I specifically like it with use with breast cancer. It's one of my favorite herbs because a lot of breast cancer is caused by congestion in the lymphatic system here. And poke is a wonderful one to use internally, externally. And I will go over exactly how I do that a little later. If you overdose on poke, it's kind of like a 40-day fast in about 20 minutes, and that's what David experienced. And it's one of my favorite herbs that I use in my pharmacy. Echinacea, you've probably all heard a lot about it, know a lot about it. We don't need to talk about it much. But basically, one of my favorite stories is just about the early usage of echinacea in this country, and Professor King and his wife and the Lloyd Brothers Pharmacy, and the interaction of how echinacea really kind of came to be a medicinal herbal in this country versus a folk cure. And there are a number of variations of this, but I've read stories out of Professor King's book and also out of the Lloyd Brothers books about this. But it appears that it started a lot with a man named Joseph Myers, who came from Pawnee City, Nebraska. And Joseph Myers made a tonic out of herb roots that the Indians showed him, and he used to travel around the western United States selling Myers blood purifier tonic. And he became famous because he would have live rattlesnakes on stage, and he would let the rattlesnakes bite him, and he wasn't affected by this, and they had venom in them. And he sold this. It was a very strong alcoholic preparation. I think he was probably a pickled drunk himself. And he would sell this, and it became a fairly famous preparation. And I've read the label on it, and it was for everything from mad dog bites to rattlesnake bites to changing your mood to cancer to hiccups, like some of the old medicinals were. And at one point he sent a case of it to Professor King, one of our herbal eclectic doctors from the late 1800s and early 1900s, and said, "Can you please tell me what is in this, because I don't know what it is. I just make it." And Professor King thought, yeah, what an idiot. He sends me a bottle of liquid and I'm supposed to identify the plant, which was impossible. And he told him that. He wrote him back and told him that. Professor King took the case of bottles and put it in the closet and forgot about it. Professor King's wife had cancer and was dying of cancer, and Professor King and the Lloyd brothers in those days were some of the most powerful herbal healers, and they had done everything they could for his wife, and she wasn't responding, and she was getting worse. And one day she started turning around, and so they thought they hit on her cure and kept dosing her higher, and she got better and better and better, finally did heal herself of cancer. And when they started writing a report on it, she let them know, you better be a little more accurate. She goes, because I stopped taking all the things you were giving me, and I drank the stuff in the closet. And it was like, well, what stuff are you talking about? And she drank the whole case of Myers Blood Snake Oil Tonic, which is what a lot of people called it, as a snake oil peddler, because he had snakes on stage. And they were shocked. Wrote back Myers, asked him to send them the plant. He did. They identified it as echinacea, and within 3 years, echinacea became the #1 selling herbal compound in the United States from this man. So it's kind of an intriguing story how people discovered this, and of course Joseph Myers got it from the Indians. The Indians in and around the plains had showed him that this root was what they used for clearing their blood and healing themselves. So many times these are how things get started. Right now the Kansas Highway Department spends millions of dollars trying to eradicate it because it grows onto the interstates and the highways.
They're planting it in Pennsylvania.
All right. And 90% of the harvested root is being exported out of the United States. The Germans sure know about it and have done an incredible amount of research and testing into it. It seems to stimulate the immune system in many ways. I've probably read about 16 ways now it stimulates the immune system, and translated German research from creating more macrophage eating in your body, stimulating your natural production of interferon, helping your B cells utilize immunoglobulin, stimulating your body to create more immunoglobulin. I mean, it's endless. The research seems to be endless, and what it does for your immunity seems to be endless. So echinacea is probably one of the most popular herbs around right now, so you just need to know a lot about it, and I wanted to tell you a little bit of history on it, if you didn't already know. I met a doctor from San Francisco, a medical doctor that's treating AIDS patients using natural methods only. He's in that 1%. And in all his tests that he showed me, the research, he used 30 drops of echinacea tincture 3 times daily for a month, and had, on the average, a 10 times increase in the T cell count of some of his patients. I'm not getting quite that response, but most of the people that I'm dealing with that have AIDS are very, very ill. And so they have like 1 T cell. So if I get 2 T cells, did I double their T cell count, or did the lab worker clean the fog out of their eyes when they were reading the blood sample? I mean, we pay so much attention to blood tests, but if any of you have been in a lab, I've seen in a cancer screening lab where the blood slides come through like this. Chugoo, chugoo, chugoo. And they're supposed to be reading this. And they don't even have time to look up at the chart, so they just have their hand on it, and they're writing with the list of names on here. So if you're going to get lab tests and listen to them, get about 20 and take an average, because they're pathetic. Okay, most of the labs, I went to my friend who's an OBGYN, and we sent the blood of a woman who was pregnant to 6 labs, and 3 labs said she was pregnant and 3 said she wasn't. You know, I mean, these lab tests are a joke, and we put so much importance on them. We'll have surgeries because of the results of a lab test. I mean, I just want you to know how inaccurate they are. So I don't put a lot of attention on blood tests, but obviously echinacea does a tremendous job at stimulating our immunity and increasing our T-cell count. So when we're thinking of immunity, cancer, AIDS, and we're going to be talking a lot about that, echinacea is a plant that we want to move into. My favorite herb, if I was going to change my name, I'd change it to garlic. Okay. Garlic is probably my favorite herb. It's one of the herbs I asked Anisha to do another master's thesis on. She's sleeping, but pay no attention to that. She always sleeps through my lectures. I have a handout in here on garlic. It is kind of yellow in color. It's about 10 pages in. And this handout, I've probably researched garlic more than any other herbalist I know. And this handout has really a compiling of a lot of that research. Everything in I didn't bother to document this because if I did, I'd need about 100 pages to do one page, just of documentation. But if any of you would like it, I have all the references at home. And I state that at the bottom. But this just goes on to tell you a little bit about garlic and what an incredibly powerful, potent, magical healing plant it is. How are our taste buds? Isn't that nice tasting, though? That's a tincture of the bark and resin from cherry. And it's, you know, cherry, of course, is a great tonic for our lungs and for coughs and colds and things like that. It's an expectorant. And of course, it tastes like cherry, doesn't it? And this is really what, you know, nowadays we, of course, don't use that in our cherry-flavored cough drops and cough tonics. It's just in there as some kind of sugar artificial flavoring. But this is originally what people used in those tonics. I just wanted to taste that a little bit. I don't think anybody needs to taste garlic. Now that Anisha's here, we'll be having more and more garlic. I noticed she's been cutting up some and putting it in the olive oil out there, so we're going to have a good dose of garlic. Okay, garlic. As far back as unrecorded history, garlic's been used. You see it in every culture, Greek culture, Egyptian, Roman. Everybody used quite a lot of garlic. From the Spartan warriors of Greece to the Egyptians, fed it to the slaves that built the pyramids. Every culture associated garlic with strength and health. And it's amazing that it's really not looked at that way anymore. In my handout, I talk about Hippocrates. Maybe he used garlic specifically for treating cancer and tumors. That was the main reason he used garlic. In World War I and II, the British government used garlic on battle wounds in the trench wars of World War I. It worked better than any antibiotic they had. It worked better than sulfur drugs. They even used it in World War II. It was used on battle wounds. It was used to treat dysentery. It was used to treat typhoid fever successfully. Garlic is one of the leading over-the-counter drugs in the world, except for in the United States. In Germany, I believe right now it's the #1 selling over-the-counter drug. Garlic preparations are sold in pharmacies all over the world. Almost, the United States is starting to have a few, but we don't see too many. One of the first things that garlic's really famous for is its healing ability with heart disease. And it does numerous things that will help you if you have heart disease. It'll lower your cholesterol level. It'll give you more HDLs, high-density lipoproteins that remove the cholesterol from the body. Garlic will lower your blood pressure. And it's an incredible healer for heart disease. About 2/3 of the research into garlic have been about garlic and heart disease. About 1/3 of the research has been garlic and cancer. Numerous research projects in the United States. I cannot believe to this day that the American Medical Association has not adapted their programs to include garlic for degenerative disease with all the studies and tests that have been done. It's an effective cancer therapy. Medical research labs in colleges all over the United States have proved that. But they just seem to prove it and then shelve it. They do not use the garlic. The National Cancer Institute reported that the cancer incidence worldwide is lowest where the garlic consumption is the highest. And there are a few isolated spots in the world where there's never been an incidence of cancer at all, and these happen to be the people that have the highest per person intake of garlic. Garlic helps our immunity. It breaks down tumors. It's been used with people who have cancer, and the people who have used garlic have had a 10 times reduction in colon, rectal, and stomach cancer over the groups that didn't use garlic. It's an absolute healer for cancer. So just keep that in mind. It has almost 75, I've even read 80 different sulfur compounds in it. So it's a strong sulfur plant. One of those compounds is an acid, it's sulfuric acid, and that's why garlic burns. It'll burn right through your skin if you tape it on your skin. So we got to be careful how we use it. It's probably the most powerful antibiotic on this planet. It not only kills gram-positive, but it also kills gram-negative bacteria, which means it's a broad-spectrum antibiotic. Garlic juice diluted 1 part in 125,000 still inhibits the growth of most bacteria. That's a powerful plant. In fact, in many studies, they chopped garlic and sent the fumes from one building to the next, and just the odor of garlic alone killed bacteria and virus. So think about that. A lot of people thought it was just when you ate garlic, your friends wouldn't come close enough to you to catch a cold. Okay? But it's really not that. It's the odor alone will destroy virus and bacteria. What? Yes, very important. Your body will develop immunity against any other antibiotic. This is why people who take massive doses of antibiotics have to take new ones, and after a while antibiotics won't work with them anymore. And your body does not develop a resistance or immunity to garlic. This is a very important factor. Thank you, Anisha. And so this means that you can keep using garlic and it'll still continue to be effective year after year after year. In Russia, I've talked to a medical doctor, scientist from the Pavlov Institute, one of the biggest research institutes in the Soviet Union, and they've done tons and tons of research on garlic. It's so widely used over there, they call it Russian penicillin. And they use garlic as their major antibiotic. What's wonderful is that, what do we know what's bad about antibiotics?
They're not selective.
Yeah, they're not selective. Okay, so they destroy our good bacteria, and then we develop all types of problems from yeast infections to constipation. Garlic is absolutely selective. It will only destroy bacteria that is harmful to you, and at the same time, garlic will increase your intestinal flora. Isn't that amazing? How could we ask for a better tool? Think about that.
What is the form of garlic that's being used here?
That's always being used fresh raw. Okay? And so well, I know we always try to get away from fresh raw garlic, but it seems as though that's the powerful one. In a synthesis of these reports, I have seen garlic being responsible for destroying streptococcus, strep infections, staphylococcus, staph infections, typhoid, diphtheria, cholera, bacterial dysentery, traveler's dysentery, tuberculosis, tetanus, rheumatic bacteria, and many others. Powerful antibacterial agent. I was just down in Central America. We went as far as you could go in a truck, and when that wouldn't go any farther, we got a motorcycle and went, and when that stopped, we walked to the end of a peninsula there. We were way away from civilization. And I saw things I never saw before, trees with thorns on them this long. It seemed like everything wanted to bite me, even the plants down there. Spiders, scorpions, it was wonderful. Monkeys screaming at me. I even found this beautiful fruit, and I ate it, and it tasted sweet for about 10 minutes, and then my whole mouth went on fire, and my throat closed. It was great, great experience. One of the... yeah, unforgettable. But anyway, why was I talking about that? Oh, cholera. There was a cholera epidemic when we were down there, and it broke out in the whole part we were. And I'm sitting, you know, and you get a little nervous when everybody's getting cholera and you're not. And so we just kept eating our garlic. And this has worked for me every time. And we left that area. We must have stayed there a week. We left that area and went to the other side of the island to kind of relax on the Caribbean side. And we got there, cholera epidemic. Widespread. And we just kept eating our garlic. And the bottom line is, I believe I did get cholera. When I came home, I had dysentery for about 3 hours. Okay, so I believe I did get infected with cholera at one point down there. But I'll tell you, garlic destroys cholera. Garlic destroys almost every type of bacterial infection. And when we go to foreign countries, most of the time we're going to get infected is through the water. Cholera included, you get sick of through the water. Bacterial dysentery through the water. So I would suggest two things when traveling to remote parts of the world, and that's take a water filter and take your garlic. Anisha did an extensive trip of India where she really went native with all Indian people and traveled to many areas and never got sick once. She took her garlic. She's one of the biggest garlic eaters I know. She just had her cholesterol level tested a couple weeks ago. It was 103. Okay, they told her to go out and have a cheeseburger. They really did. They said, your cholesterol level's way too low. You got to get it up. Go have a cheeseburger. So we know that garlic has the ability to lower the cholesterol, and she consumes more garlic than anybody I've ever met. And I think she can owe that to her cholesterol level and being a vegetarian and the fact that she goes everywhere and doesn't get sick because she uses lots and lots and lots of garlic. Garlic is also a very strong antiviral agent, destroys viruses on contact, whether it's just the general common cold. Yes, garlic is the cure for the common cold and upper respiratory infections. Garlic will destroy all influenzas, especially like measles, mumps, mononucleosis, chickenpox, herpes simplex 1 and 2, herpes zoster, viral hepatitis, scarlet fever, rabies, and others. What's a big virus we're all a little bit paranoid about nowadays? AIDS. Yeah, I don't see why garlic would be any different at destroying the HIV virus. Oh boy, really? And garlic's antifungal ability is really second to none. In every double-blind study I've seen done, it's beat out nystatin, which is the #1 antifungal drug every time. Exactly. So when you think about a fungus, candida overgrowth in your body, athlete's foot, ringworm, any type of fungal infection, garlic should come to mind too. As you can tell, garlic's one of my absolute favorite favorite herbs. I think that we're just scratching the surface with it. Most people's complaint is that it smells so strong. In all the research I've done, the active principle of garlic, allicin, is bound with the odor and cannot be separated. And I believe that all odorless garlic doesn't work. Or if it works, it's very, very little. And I know that there are formulas on the market that say that they're deodorized and they still work. I don't believe it. And I also believe that why does garlic have an odor? Is this an accident of nature? Or is this the way it's intended to be for us? We've decided that that odor is antisocial. But that odor is an important... What's that? Absolutely not. And it has been thrown out of some Indian cultures, some Buddhist cultures, because people found it hard to meditate when they were smelling people's garlic. There's nothing wrong with the garlic. A lot of religious groups don't like garlic because they feel that it stimulates your sexual energy. I'm sure that it does, okay? Because it makes you healthy. And a healthy person should have a strong sexual drive. One of our basic primal functions on this planet is really to reproduce. I mean, we can think about that in a lot of different ways and talk about it socially and religiously in any way we want. But basically, we are a reproduction unit. And the job of all plants and animals and species on this planet is to reproduce. And so the healthier you get, the more you're going to want to reproduce. This is just health. So I believe that garlic, which would create super health, would stimulate people to want to reproduce more. So some religious organizations don't use it. Even the Hare Krishna organization doesn't use garlic. And we're having them prepare some of their food for us up here. But they don't use garlic because they feel that it stimulates them sexually. So we just get the Hare Krishna food and add garlic to it.
Or take garlic and add a little Hare Krishna food to it.
That's right. Some people are that way.
In order to get a lot of garlic down, do you see any problem with just chopping it up and swallowing the pieces whole?
I have a lot of my clients do that. I think for the digestive tract, especially the colon, one of the best ways is just swallow it like a pill. You know, you can take whole little cloves or chop up big cloves, knock it back, drink a little liquid, that's fine.
What about the use of garlic oil?
I love garlic oil. And our problem... Yeah. That's the biggest problem around our house is it usually gets eaten before it gets to any patients. But yeah, we always have a jar of garlic oil going at the house. And Anisha started one out here. There was one started when we came, actually, and she just added to it. And now you'll see in the kitchen a jar, a quart filled with olive oil with about this much garlic in it, all the way to the top. And let's have that for dinner. Okay, let's start.
So we all smell.
That's right. Let's start moving into the garlic, because if we all eat it, no one will mind. But if you become the only non-garlic eater in here, you'll want to leave. Yes?
In working out the herb shop with people on the phones, I talked to one lady who wouldn't leave her house anymore because of the garlic she was taking. She was looking for an odorless garlic.
Yeah.
Because she was taking garlic, and she said she's not going to leave the house.
Yeah.
She has friends or family go to the grocery store for her, and things like that. And because she has to take the garlic,
Yeah.
I can't remember what her animal was, but she was told that's the only thing that's going to help her.
Yeah, I think when you get well, you become okay. Because Anisha, although she does smell of garlic now and then, I would suggest that she consumes 30, 40 cloves a week. Would that be? At least 5 a day of cloves of garlic. And although I do smell it on her occasionally, it isn't like she reeks of garlic. Yeah.
Like it seems to. Yeah.
And so I think at first.
Something to do with fats. Maybe it's because garlic, cuts through fat and cholesterol. Maybe
Absolutely.
when it's done that, you don't smell it anymore.
Because I notice with people at first sometimes get a real garlic purge out of their body, but after a while don't. And I think what I suggest my patients do is have some peppermint oil. what we just had first thing this morning. Do you think you're going to smell garlic on someone's breath after one drop of that peppermint oil I passed around? It isn't going to happen. Okay, so just carry peppermint oil with you. Dr. Christopher used to keep cloves in his pocket and put a clove in his mouth and suck it on it. Nothing will get through the smell of a clove. And it smells nice. Do you know what I mean? So this is a way that we can cover up the garlic a little bit if we have a problem where we work or whatever. Yes?
What do you think of the odorless garlic?
Yeah, I don't think it works. I've used Kyolic in my practice, and I don't think it works at all, or if it does a little bit. There are some new ones that seem to work a little better, but I'm not a fan of them at all. I think, from my research, garlic has to have its odor. It's the important part.
Plus, there are different percentages of the garlic in those products. They're not all the same.
Yeah.
And it's why probably the fresh is better.
Exactly.
But I've read a lot about how...
Well, to add to that, would the comfrey leaf off the plant in the backyard be better for us to use now, or some freeze-dried comfrey extract? I mean, the comfrey leaf. Nature. Yes. Keep going.
The healing parts of the garlic, the allantoin,
Yeah.
Allison, is released when it's macerated, or there are
Sure.
different kinds of the healing parts that are released when it's cut.
Absolutely.
Macerated. So how would that affect if you swallowed a whole clove?
Yeah.
You'd still get the...
Yeah, because your digestive juices start eating away at it, and that does break up the cellular structure. But that's not the most potent way to use it. I'm just saying that you can use it that way, and sometimes I prefer to use it that way for working in the colon, so it doesn't get all digested before it gets down there. Use some fresh and swallow some whole. But I use a lot of, in our clinic, we use garlic implants rectally and vaginally. Also, you can start out by putting the clove in whole and peeled, and if the person tolerates that, okay, you can bruise it by hand, and if the person tolerates that, okay, you can make nicks in it. And I have used them rectally myself and on all my clients, and Anisha's used them many times vaginally. So if any of you women would like to ask her about that, I'm sure she can share with you any secrets that you might need to know. But basically, she just cuts it a bit and inserts it, and you leave it in all night long. And garlic destroys all types of bacteria, fungus, viral activity, anything, vaginally, rectally, anywhere you put it in the body, and it's safe to use that way. So I just wanted to mention that. If you sliced it fresh, yes, it can. In other words, but if you just bruise it a little bit or nick it a little bit, sure, you can tolerate it. But garlic's great for burning. I use it to burn tumors and warts and all sorts of things, slicing it and applying it straight on the skin. If you have something on your skin you don't want anymore, just slice a clove of garlic in half, lay it on there, tape it on, and do that for 3 days.
My mom did that. She had a black mark on her face from being burned when she was a kid. It kept
Yeah.
growing. She cut it up in little tiny pieces and taped it to her face, and it got like a lizard. Her skin,
Yeah.
and it peeled off.
Yeah, it'll burn it right off. It's our natural healing surgery tool. Yes.
Like the vaginal insert, does that work well for yeast infection?
Absolutely. Absolutely for yeast infection. And of course, the underlying cause, when we look at candida overgrowth or yeast infection, that's a sign that our immunity isn't working. Okay? So we're talking about a topical treatment for it, but unless you correct the underlying causes of your weakened immune system, or stop taking your antibiotics, or whatever reason it is you have the yeast infection, it will come back. But garlic, yes, will destroy it. If you've seen the garlic handout, then you'll see that the next one here is the anti-plague formula. And this is a bit of a revision on the old anti-plague handout. Dr. Christopher had numerous formulas. This was one of his favorite formulas, his anti-plague formula. And he really wanted this flyer distributed because he believed in this, and he believed that this was a formula for everybody to know, be able to make, and have around if times got real tough and everybody got real sick. That seems to happen a lot. This is basically a formula on how to make it. And this is really how to make a gallon of it. And if you don't need a gallon, you can make less. And I'm really not going to go into that much, but you see that the one herb in the largest proportions, besides comfrey, is 8 ounces of garlic juice, fresh garlic juice. Wow. And I taught at the Toronto Herbalist College in Toronto, and when I arrived, they had asked each one of their 35 students to make up a bottle of anti-plague formula, and they wanted me to sample it to see how they had done. And I sampled every one of those 35 bottles, and by time midnight hit, I went into 103-degree fever and purified for at least 2 or 3 days. So I wasn't sick, but this created a detoxification. These are alterative herbs. Of course, garlic is an alterative herb. And most of you that went, oh, know what anti-plague tastes like, it's a very strong, intense formula. Well, you're a very deranged individual. No, I know I'm right there with you. I say the same thing. I mean, after a while, these things that taste strange start tasting good. You know, there's a reason for that. If we were to take everything that grows out here in the woods, the predominant flavor in nature is bitter. Okay? The predominant flavor in the grocery store is sweet or salty. Okay? So what we think tastes good is unnatural, and what we think tastes bad is natural. So it will take some time for all of us to get used to this. And right now would be a good time for everybody to go into the kitchen. We're not going to take a break, but have a cup of the tea that I made. We made a bone set echinacea tea, but the echinacea is hardly coming out in the flavor, and it's mainly bone set. What do we know about bone set? Flu? Diaphoretic?
Yeah.
Sure. And so I made a nice bone set tea, and let's taste that and see what it tastes like. It's a bit bitter. You might only want a half a cup, or there's not probably even enough for a cup for everybody. I always make a brew where I teach, and we just add to the brew. I brought lots of herbs with me. And I was in England one year. And I'll be gathering some things outside. Let's get some comfrey into this, and all the herbs that we see growing around here. And if anybody has some herbs, if anybody would like to take it upon themselves to pick some fresh valerian, let's have that in some tea here and really start using these plants. I was teaching, this is a natural healing joke now, but it's a true story. I was teaching a course in England, and 30 people in a medical herbalist class, and I had been gathering herbs and putting them in, and gathering herbs and putting them in. And I remember, the last thing I remember, Doc, is I was drinking my tea, and then I remember I was lying on the floor. I was lying down on the floor just like, wow, I feel great. Oh, boy, I feel good all over. Where am I? Who are all these people? And I looked up, and we had in the class a bishop of the Holy Celtic Church, fairly conservative man, who was standing on his desk singing with his cup of tea. And I believe what we got is ergot poisoning. I don't know if any of you have heard of ergot, but it's a mold that grows on some plants, and it contains LSD. And it only lasted for, LSD from ergot on a plant would not be like taking some LSD that somebody manufactured in a lab, but it was mildly hallucinogenic. I did have to cancel the class for the whole rest of the day. One student was found running naked outside, and this is the only time it's happened to me in 20 years. So we don't have to worry about that, but it was a funny story, and no one got sick. In fact, some of the people were a lot nicer the next day. So anyway, yeah, I've never been able to reproduce that brew.
Doesn't it grow in rye, or can it grow in any grain?
Mainly cereal grains, sure. In fact, there were years in many countries of Europe where the people in town would go nuts for a day or two, and it was found afterwards that these would be days when the temperature and climate was just right for the mold to grow on the grain. And so it's been used medicinally in different practices, ergot, for different things. Medical professionals have even used it, but I just wanted to tell that as a joke. It was a funny day in the life of an herbalist in England.
That's how a bunch of women got burned too at the stake. They brewed up a wrong batch and thought they were getting these ladies as witches, cursing them with this stuff.
Absolutely. Sure. Ergot has a long history of that, and it is something in nature. So anyway, this is some echinacea, but can anybody taste echinacea in here? I really can't. We just threw the root in some water, boiled it a little, simmered it a little bit. It's going to be tomorrow before we really taste that echinacea. Bone set. We're really tasting our bone set in here. So we might sweat a little bit, feel a little perspiration coming on by taking our bone set. And this is something we'll talk more about when we make herbal preparations, why you can't just simmer a root for 2 minutes and think you're going to get an herb tea out of it. I don't taste any echinacea. We're going to have to let that rehydrate in water for a bit, do some boiling on it, and then we'll start noticing a little tingling in our mouth when we drink the tea. But we've really changed this human body form from the way nature intended to now a man-made form in a lot of ways. If I were to take a big lawnmower and drive it from here to New York and drive over every tree, bush, and shrub, and I were to analyze that chemically, we would find that it would be 100 to 200 times higher in potassium than sodium. On the other hand, if I went to every grocery store and ground everything up, we'd find it to be about 1,000 times higher in sodium than potassium, the opposite of the balance in nature. And this is one of the reasons we're sick. And so what have many natural healers done to try to correct that? A potassium broth, a potato peeling broth. I have one on my 7-day cleanse pink sheet on the back, how to make a potassium broth with potato peelings and carrot peelings and beet peelings to try to rebalance the system. This will cleanse the mucus out of the body, the acids out of the body. Dr. Christopher, Dr. Jensen, Pavlor Arola, Randolph Stone, Benedict Lust. I could go down a list of 1,000 natural healers who all used a potato peeling broth as part of their healing process to get the body back into balance, because, see, we're not eating what nature intended. So the same way we think about that, I want to talk to you about bitter, because bitter is as nature intended. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have raspberries and strawberries, because that's also how nature intended. But bitter is something that we don't have at all. We think bitter's bad. And of course we know that bitter stimulates our digestion, and also bitter heals the liver. So a nice cup of bitter tea is a great thing to do for yourself. Yes, Reed.
I think it's, again, going back to me dealing with my children, it's an important thing when you're dealing with children or with new people just getting into herbs, is to never refer to something as, oh, this tastes kind of bad.
Yeah.
Or this, you never want to associate bad. It tastes different or,
Yeah.
not like you're normally used to or something that...
You know what I see when I give a mom and a child a preparation? The mom takes it and looks at me, and the child takes it and looks at mom.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Waiting for the reaction. And if mom goes, oh, the kid starts crying. And if mom goes, that's great, the kid thinks it's great. Okay? Not all the time. But you're right, Reed, and I'm just adding to what you're saying. Our influence is very important when we're dealing with children and using herbs. Because our natural, inherent, born taste would not reject this. This is what nature's providing to us. Does that make sense? So we're really deciding to reject it because we've poisoned ourselves with sugar and salt. And some of our children are poisoned with sugar and salt. They've even inherited our poisoning with sugar and salt.
I remember when I was in kindergarten that our kindergarten teacher was teaching teaching us the different tastes. And the very last one was bitter, and she got the dark chocolate
Yeah.
we used to cook with.
Yeah.
And she says, "Now, after you taste this, you can go spit it out in the bathroom." And so all the kids we all ran
Yeah.
into the bathroom to spit it out, and she was saying, "No, that's bitter, and that's
Yeah.
bad. You know, that's what it tastes like."
Yeah, so you learned that bitter is bad. Yeah, thank you.
Preconditioning children. I have a sister-in-law in which my mother-in-law did not permit her to have sugar until she was 2 years old, I believe. She doesn't like ice cream. She doesn't like sweets.
Isn't that
She won't
amazing?
touch it.
Yeah,
And her body is better.
because taste buds are not inherited, they are acquired. Our sense of taste and what we think is good or bad. It's what we acquire or what we're conditioned into. Yeah, so we learn that bitter's bad. So what I'm really trying to do here is brainwash you a bit, wash your brain and say bitter is good. But that doesn't mean that the minute you go, oh, bitter's good. I'm not saying you're not going to be a little shocked by this, do you know what I'm saying? But we're going to get used to it because a lot of plants are bitter. We're going to have some that are even more bitter than that. Let's pass around some intestinal corrective formula. I'll just give you
Even if we already had them?
Oh yeah, no, don't take these. You can get some from him, and here. I like tossing it always. You throw someone 3. There's no way anybody can catch 3 of anything, but if you do, you win. You win the prize. And the back row. Ah, it's coming in. Open up a capsule and taste it. Taste the herbs in here. I never take a capsule of herbs unless I open it up and put it in my mouth. I want to know what's in it. I don't necessarily believe what's in the label. And then tell me what you think the predominant taste is. There's a lot of them in here because we have...
Garlic cayenne.
yeah.
Bitter.
Bitter. Anybody taste bitter?
It tastes burn.
How bitter? Light bitter, medium bitter, bitter bitter. Bitter bitter, yeah. Bitter is the principle of amodin, okay, of the anthraquinone amodin. And aloes has more amodin than any other plant. It should be extremely bitter. Not aloe vera, but aloes. Aloes spicata, aloes ferus, one of the most bitter plants on this planet. So in case any of you thought this tea was bitter, now you can see that there are definite degrees of bitter. In fact, this tea might taste pretty good to wash that bitter taste out of our mouth. Very bitter. And then what else do you taste in there? Hot, because there's cayenne. Hot. Garlic. Okay? You taste what we say is in the label that's in this product. Has anybody seen the product Perfect 7? Okay, on the market. Perfect 7. It says it contains plantain, or it says it contains ovada, yeah, psyllium seeds. It also says that it has garlic, cayenne, and golden seal. There's about 1/5000th part of those herbs in there. Because I know at home, I can add the slightest bit of cayenne pepper, a pinch, to a big amount of food, and I taste heat, right? I taste no heat in Perfect 7. I can add a slight amount of golden seal. We all had the golden seal earlier, and you get bitter. No bitterness in Perfect 7. And garlic is not an herb you can hide. No garlic taste or flavor in Perfect 7. Okay? So when I taste a product that tells me it's supposed to have garlic, cayenne, golden seal in it, and I don't taste any of those tastes, they're not in it. I rest my case on that. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad product. I'm just saying it doesn't taste to me what the label is telling me. Now, the label does say psyllium first and list these other herbs second in order. So maybe what it means is they're mixing it 500 billion tons of psyllium and 1 pinch of garlic. Okay? So, but however they're doing it, I don't taste any garlic, golden seal, and cayenne in that product. And you can taste it in this one. And again, I'm not bragging about products, but they should taste like what's on the label. You should be able to taste that. Bitter. Someone mentioned, we were talking about foods and intense or allergic responses, and I thought that I would just give you part of our understanding of allergies, or really allergic responses. Now, later on tomorrow, I'm going to talk specifically about allergies and people that have them. Right now, it's really food allergies. I get many clients that come to me, they've been tested by medical doctors and alternative practitioners, and they've been told that they are allergic to certain types of food. Hogwash. Okay, this is just misunderstanding of what an allergy really is and what a cleanse or a purification is. I suggest that all of us in here are allergic to petrochemicals, polyester fabrics, artificial insecticides, nylon, okay? And if you use those substances and you have a rash or a sore throat or you swell up, it's because you're having a toxic reaction to a toxic substance. On the other hand, if you eat strawberries or watermelon or pineapple or carrots or any natural food or herb and you have a reaction, it's a detoxification. And that's the best way to make this classification. It doesn't mean you're not having a real reaction. It just means that your body is being cleansed by this particular food. So if someone says to me, every time I eat strawberries, I break out, wonderful. What did Dr. Christopher say about the person who ate a walnut and broke out?
Go for it.
That's right. Go for it. And he would use small doses. I mean, we don't, you know, some people think that natural healers gain pleasure from torturing people. Only moderate pleasure. He would use small doses until the person cleansed and detoxified and could handle the walnuts. So it's important when people say they're allergic to fruits or vegetables or nuts or seeds or grains, now you found a beautiful key. Now we know a detox food for that person and the particular poisons in their body. Low dosages, increasing them over long periods of time, is a wonderful way for that person to cleanse. So I just wanted to make that distinction between allergic reaction and detoxification or purification.
The allergic reaction was when they were, it was clothing?
And man-made substances, gasoline, polyester clothing, nylon. Yeah, sure, because chocolate's, you know, loaded with sugar, saturated fat. What's that? Tap water loaded with chlorine and fluoride. How are we on our time?
About 35 minutes.
Great. Yes? Yeah, sometimes, thank you, it's chemicals that are on the foods that we're allergic to and not the foods themselves. I know people that every time they ate grapes, they got a stomach ache, or apples. Well, the pesticides that are on food is incredible. And I really want to promote organic. Do you know that most areas in Europe I go have more organic produce than we have here in the United States? You go in your typical Sainsbury's over in England and you'll find organic produce. You can go in a lot of stores in this country and not find organic produce. We need to... Yeah, and see, we have to break that cycle by purchasing it as much as we can afford, which will bring the cost down. So we have to support our organic farmers. Do you know the National Cancer Institute just released a report that farm workers who use pesticides have a 6 times higher cancer rate than the general public?
And they're having children with defects.
Absolutely. So we're eating that food. So this is a great point that we may be just allergic to the chemicals on this food. You know, I will repeat this multiple times over the next couple days, but most people I work with will pick the best thing they're doing and claim that that's making them sick. I was okay until you gave me that apple. And my whole digestive tract, I had cramps, I had pains. You know, they were okay with all the other horrible things they were doing, but it was the apple that made them sick. Yes, the apple is making them sick it's causing a purification. It's detoxifying them. So this is something that you have to understand. They're not allergic to apples. And we'll talk more about allergies later. Again, this is Dr. Christopher's anti-plague formula. It's something that you should all know, keep, and have. It is very difficult to make. I think the easiest way to use this is to call 1-800-453-1406. Yes. And say, give me a quart of anti-plague, which is the herb shop, because it is very, very difficult to make.
So, Nature's Way doesn't touch that.
Nature's Way's gone, I assume that in some ways they didn't use that garlic or something.
Yeah.
Carry, do you, or
But they won't use concrete or lobelia, so it's not the same product.
do you carry the Nature's Way one too?
We don't.
Good.
Yeah. And so call 1-800-453-1406 to get your own bottle of anti-plague formula. Thank you. That was an advertisement. Because it's incredibly difficult to make. But the School of Natural Healing's policy has been from the very beginning, and especially Dr. Christopher's, to not keep any secrets. Okay? And that's why you'll notice on page 526 in the School of Natural Healing, we'll begin all of Dr. Christopher's formulas and the herbs that are in them. And at the back of this book, you have all of my formulas and the herbs that are in them. We don't keep secrets. Again, our job is to train you to be able to heal yourself and your friends. And if everybody knows how to do this, we can retire and go to the beach and hang out. Okay? So we're not into secrets here. And so it's important that you know how to make this. But again, as you will read, it's a very complicated formula. And so you're better off until you absolutely would have to or the need would arise, just order it. On the flip side of that, I have my formula for what I call super tonic, which we will taste and experiment with a little bit. And this is a formula that I put together, but really, you know, who knows? I mean, I don't know anymore what's mine and what isn't. I've read so much and seen so much. This formula, though, is produced all over the United States now. There's about 8 of my students that are making this and selling this. I think the most popular is called Cyclone Cider. And that student I'm waiting to find to kick a little bit because they're adding vitamin C and parsley and vegetable glycerin in it, like vinegar would go bad. Do you know what I'm saying? So we'll play with this formula and talk about it more. But this is kind of a fresh herb formula for the common cold and plagues and whatever. And I just wanted you to have the recipe to that. And we'll sample that and talk more about that when we do our herbal preparations.